Okay, kumusta?
Pwede na?
Meron na tayong 67 participants. 66 attendees. Yeah.
Makain pa yun. Alas 7 kasi. Makain pa yun.
May 15 minutes pa tayo. 15 minutes. Yeah. Para po magpadala kayo ng tanong, gamitin po nyo yung Q&A, yung question and answer, para po makita ni Kuya Teddy mamaya after ng kanyang lecture at masagot po niya isa-isa. Yung pong sa chat, mga personal messages. Kung meron po kayo nakitang Brad na nandito na gusto niyo i-personal message o gusto po niyo magpadala ng mensahe sa lahat ng mga nandito sa chat room, sa webinar na to, pwede po niyo silang paabutan ng mensahe. Okay? Para po hindi magulo, no? So lahat po na nasa loob ngayon, magandang gabi sa inyo lahat. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo ngayong lecture na ito. Muli po, alala ko sa inyo na kung kayo po ay may tanong sa lecture na ibibigay ni Very Worshipful SGL, maaari pong gamitin nyo yung Q&A part. Ngayon, kung gusto nyo naman po magtaas ng kamay at meron po kayong katanungan at talagang hindi nyo kayang maisulat, pwede nyo pong gamitin yung inyong raise hand para makita ko po yung inyong kamay na nakataas at itatanong ko po kay Very Worshipful SGL kung kayo pwedeng i-acknowledge para i-articulate niyo ang inyong tanong. Okay? So, meron na nga po akong pumasok na tanong dito. Galing kay Kuya Dino. Ano ba to? Okay, tama Kuya Dino. Antayin natin si Kuya Teddy mag-explain ito ha. Kasi kasama to sa lecture niya. Okay? Okay. O yan. May mga questions na una pumapasok sa ating Q&A. Okay lang mo yan. Pasok nyo lang ipasok dyan para pagpasok mamaya ni Kuya Teddy, mabasa niya. Okay? Ang official start po natin ay 7 o'clock. So, 7 o'clock, papasok na si Kuya Teddy. Magbibigay na tayo ng initial briefing. By 7:15, nandito na si Most Worshipful Grandmaster sa grupo. Magbibigay na siya ng kanyang mensahe. Tapos, diretso na po tayo sa ating webinar. Muli, magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo. At standby lang po lahat. At mag-umpisa na tayo in a few minutes. Salamat. Kay Melchor, nakataas yung kamay nyo. Ano po yun? Binigyan ko kayo ng talking permit. Kuya Andres Hala, bakit po? Meron po, nakataas po inyong kamay. Hello. Kuya Andres, yes.
Wala po. Napindot lang.
Okay, okay. O sige, bababa ko na. I-mute ko na uli kayo. Tapos, okay. Lower hand, okay.
Okay, Dennis.
Ready?
I'll put in my ano.
Yeah, we have 840 registrants
Okay.
for this evening. Okay, ulitin ko po. Sa lahat ng mga bagong pasok lang sa ating webinar ngayon, we have 170 participants already this evening. Although we have 840 registrants and most likely in the next couple of minutes they'll be joining in. This is how the webinar will go. Meron po tayong chat at meron tayong Q&A. Makikita nyo sa ilalim ng inyong Zoom. So kung maaari po, gamitin po ninyo ang chat kung kayo ay may gustong batiin at may gustong makausap sa mga kapatid na nandito sa ating ngayon. At kung meron po kayong katanungan naman tungkol sa lecture ng ating SGL, gamitin po nyo yung Q&A. Yung Q&A po, babasahin pagkatapos ng lecture ni Kuya Teddy para doon po niya sasagutin ang inyong mga katanungan. Okay? Base po sa kanyang lecture. So, makinig muna po tayo. Tingnan po muna natin yung magiging presentation. After po nun, babasahin po niya lahat yon. So, kung meron po kayong mga gusto sabihin, may gusto kayong ipaabot na mensahe, idaan po ninyo sa ating chat room. Okay? So, nandito na po ngayon sa ating panelists ang ating speaker, ang Very Worshipful SGL Teddy Calao. Nandito na rin po ang ating Assistant Grand Secretary, si Very Worshipful Oliver Yabut. Plus, kakapasok lang po at nag-aantay lang ng oras. Nandito na rin po sa atin, kasama natin ngayon ang ating Most Worshipful Grandmaster, Most Worshipful Agapito S1 Jr. So, in a few minutes, pag nag-start na po tayo, magbibigay po ng paunang mensahe ang ating Grandmaster. Tapos po yung lecture ni Kuya Teddy. After po ng lecture, magkakaroon po ng pagsasagot ni Kuya Teddy sa mga inyong tanong. Kaya habang po nagle-lecture siya, para hindi mawala ang inyong katanungan, isulat po nyo doon sa Q&A. Makikita nyo po sa ilalim ng inyong Zoom video yon, Q&A. Pag nilagay po nyo yung inyong tanong doon sa Q&A, sasagutin po ni Kuya Teddy yan pagkatapos ng kanyang lecture. Okay? Ngayon, kung meron po kayong may ibang katanungan, ay may iba kayong greetings na gustong gawin, idaan po nyo doon sa chat. Okay? Doon sa ating chat room. Okay? Doon po kayo mabahati ng mga nakikita nyo o may nakita kayo na mga kasama sa ating talakayan ngayong gabi. Okay? So, ang ating pong oras ay 6:59. Okay? Magantay lang po tayo ng ilang minuto pa at mag-uumpisa po tayo sa ating webinar 3, ano, para sa month na ito, sa buwan na ito. Tungkol po ito sa lodge management. Tungkol po ito sa ating mga petitioners. Okay? So, isa itong napakagandang topic, no, na ating pag-uusapan ngayong gabi. Dahil hanapin po doon sa huling webinar po natin last month na nag-discuss po si Very Worshipful Teddy Calao. Ang daming mga katanungan tungkol sa mga pag-handle ng ating mga petitioner. At dito po niya sasagutin ang mga yon. Okay? So maaari nga akong tingin ko dun sa inyong mga katanungan, maaring sa kanyang lecture masasagot na po niya yon kaagad. Okay. Mga 2 gabi pong hindi natulog si Berworcipul Teddy Calaw para lang po masigurado na ma-review niya ang ating constitution at ang ating mga edicts para po siguradong sa gabing ito hindi masayang ang inyong oras na makinig sa kanya. Alam niyo naman po kung pag-uusapan ko sino rockstar sa ating mga lecturer ngayon, Teddy
I'll
Calaw.
get back to you, Kuya Dennis, for that. Watch the presentation.
Teddy Calaw po. Teddy Calaw. Ito po ang ating webinar. Simultaneously po na simultaneous po ito na inihahayag sa ating Facebook live courtesy of Cable Tow Team sa pangunguna po ng ating Editor-in-Chief Kuya Harold Santiago at ang kanyang team. So simultaneous po ito na pinapakita sa Facebook. Yung pong last natin na webinar, kulang na lang po tayo ng hindi ako magkamali, mga 3 tao, nasa 10,000 po yung inabot ng ating webinar last month. So this month, napaka-interesting po ng ating topic. So in-expect po namin na marami din ang magpa-participate at titingin kung makikinig at magpa-participate tungkol po dito sa ating webinar. Ang ating pong Most Worshipful Grandmaster, kung hindi po makikita maya-maya, nandun po sa ating Grand Lodge. Ganyan po ka dedicated ang ating Grandmaster na maski bawal pong pumunta sa Grand Lodge, nandun po siya. So makita niyo yung kanyang commitment at kanyang passion, no, para lang maipakita ko na tuloy-tuloy. Bagamat may pandemya, tuloy-tuloy po ang serbisyo ng ating Grand Lodge sa mga kapatid. So in a few minutes, brethren, we will be starting the webinar, and we are very thankful for all of you joining. So there are already 260 participants. Imagine 260 participants in this webinar at this point in time. So ang isang seminar po natin sa Grand Lodge, marami na kung umabot tayo ng 100. Ang 260, ibig sabihin dumoble na po tayo sa marami. So marami pa po ang pumapasok. Sa lahat po ng inyong mga chat na pinapadala, nababasa po namin lahat ito. Maraming salamat. Magandang gabi sa inyo lahat. No? Thank you for joining this webinar this month. This is Series 3 of our pandemic series, Grand Lodge Pandemic Webinar Series. Every month po ito. Huwag po kayo mag-alala. At meron pong sunod-sunod.
Every third Wednesday.
Every third Wednesday. Okay? So every Wednesday of the month po tayo. At sunod-sunod po ito. So lahat po ng inyong katanungan, kung gusto nyo nang ipadala ngayon at excited na kayo magtanong, pwede nyo na pong ilagay doon sa Q&A. Okay? Para habang nagle-lecture si Kuya Teddy, makita nyo kung masagot man yun, edi okay. Kung hindi po, sasagutin po niya yun sa inyo pagkatapos ng kanyang lecture. Yung naman pong mga bati-bati at hi-hi, doon po sa chat nyo ilagay. Ha? Huwag po kayo magkamali. Dahil pag nilagay nyo po ang inyong batis doon sa inyong Q&A, meron po kayong penalty. Hindi, wala po. Biro lang yan. Pero maganda lagay nyo lang sa chat para hindi maggulo doon sa Q&A. Dahil po mamaya, pag tapos na yung lecture ni Kuya Teddy, babasahin po niya isa-isa yung Q&A para makita niya at mabigyan linaw pa niya kung meron po kayong gusto pang linawin sa kanyang ibibigay na lecture ngayong gabi. Okay? So, oh my goodness, 270. 275, Kuya Teddy, my goodness. Hindi pa bumababa. Tumataas. 800, as of kanina po, 840 yung nag-register na mga brethren. So, marami-rami nga ho ang mga papasok ngayong gabi. Sa lahat po ng mga kapatid na nandito ngayong gabi, maraming salamat. Lahat po ng mga DDGM na nag-support po nito, maraming salamat. Lahat po ng mga Grand Line Officers na nandito ngayong gabi, maraming salamat. Lahat po ng mga Worshipful Masters na nag-encourage ng kanilang mga lodges na sumali ngayong gabi, maraming salamat din po. At sa lahat po ng mga kapatid na nakikinig ngayon, maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat.
Kuya Dennis, I also understand that there are some lodges who are requiring their petitioners to watch. So welcome to those petitioners.
By the way, ito nga po pala. Ang kinaganda po ng mga lecture series na ginagawa natin ngayon, hindi po ito tiled. Kumbaga, ibig sabihin, ito po yung mga public knowledge, kung susuriin. Para kung itatranslate po ito yung tinatawag na layman's term. Para hindi po magkaroon ng misinterpretation, pati po yung publiko, tama ang kanilang perception at kanilang pagkakaalam kung ano man ang ginagawa natin. Dahil po hindi i-disclose, huwag kayong mag-alala, hindi i-disclose ni Kuya Teddy yung mga sikreto ninyo, pero sisiguro din naman ho niya na may papaabot niya kung ano ang prosesong dinadaanan natin para maintindihan din ho ng publikong gustong maintindihan naman kung ano po ang masonria. Okay. Excuse me po. Ano lang ho yun? Nasamid lang ho ako, hindi po COVID yun. Kuya Teddy, nakikita ko yung mga question, napaka-intriguing. Mamaya may excite ka. Okay?
I'm seeing it also. We're gonna have a nice Q&A later.
Ang ganda. Cute no? Ang ganda ng mga tanong. Ang ganda yan. Na-excite. Okay. Kuya Teddy. Yeah. Asa na ba to? Ang daming ang dami yung mga pasensya na kayo. May mga nagte-text pa ho sa akin ngayon na mga kapatid na nagpadala ng
We just hit 300 participants, Kuya Dennis.
okay.
You want more light?
What time do we start, Kuya Dennis? 7:15?
7:15, sir. Or maybe
Okay.
7:10 in a minute. Pwede na siguro.
Yo, okay, yeah. Because it's filling up na.
Oh.
Mahirap pala pag pinapaalis kita.
Registrants po natin kasi pumalo ng 860. Dami nating mga messages na pumasok. So sa inyo lahat ng mga mensahe ninyo, magandang gabi at maraming salamat sa inyong pakikisa ngayong gabi. Malaking bagay po ang inyong pakikinig ngayon dahil marami po tayong pag-uusapan tungkol sa pag-handle ng ating mga petitioners. Ang ating pong webinar simultaneously live via broadcast din po. At ang mag-handle po nito ay ang ating cable tow team sa pangunguna ng ating editor-in-chief na sina Kuya Harold Santiago at ang kanyang grupo. So maraming salamat Kuya Harold at sana marami rin tayong mga sumali at maabutan ng ating webinar ngayong gabi. Okay. Sa lahat po ng mga nag-participate, maraming salamat. May mga inaayos lang ako mga kapatid na nag-register. Akala nila ganito po kasi ang ang webinar, ang Zoom para lang maintindihan ng lahat habang hindi pa tayo nagse-session. Ang webinar, ang session, pag nag-register kayo sa isang webinar, unique ko siya sa gadget na ginamit nyo mag-register. So, ibig sabihin nun, hindi kayo makakagamit. Kung nag-register kayo, ginamit nyo yung cellphone nyo, tapos magre-reply ko siya, marireceive nyo yun sa cellphone din ninyo. Ngayon, yung na-receive yung email, maski buksan nyo yun sa inyong laptop, hindi po nyo magagamit yun dahil hindi yun ang niregister nyo na device. Okay? So, kailangan, kung ano yung ginamit yung device na mag-register, yun din ang gagamitin nyo sa webinar. Okay? Para hindi ko kayo mawala. Nakataas ang kamay ni Kuya Domingo de Asis, Brother Jerry Evangelio at Rogelio Maluyon. Napindot nyo lang ho ba yan? Kuya Nelson Butero Sr. Napindot nyo lang ho ba yan o may gusto kayong sabihin? I-allow ko kayong magsalita for the moment kung may gusto kayong sabihin bago tayo mag-umpisa. Or kung napindot nyo lang, ibababa ko kayo, ha?
Oh, be merciful, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. Yes po. Ano po yan?
Napindot ko lang po.
Okay.
Practice ko lang po. Baka
Okay.
mamaya sa question.
Okay, sige.
Thank you.
Or maganda, Kuya Jerry, gamitin po nyo yung Q&A. I-type nyo na doon para dire-diretso mag-reply mamaya si Kuya Teddy. Ha?
Okay, very merciful.
Okay. Salamat.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Si Kuya Domingo. Ano nangyari? Napindot din niya? O pinindot lang talaga? Gusto subukan? Nangyari? Kuya Nelson? Yes? Okay, sige. Okay.
Napindot lang.
So, okay. Okay.
Very worshipful Dennis, it's 7:15. Baka we can
Yes, sir.
start.
Okay. Okay. Okay, once again, brethren, most worshipful sir, very worshipful sirs, worshipful sirs and brethren, magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat. Welcome to our webinar series for this month. So this is third of a series that we're doing while in a pandemic, just to appraise you and inform you of what is happening to the Grand Lodge and how things are going, and update you of the things that we are doing as of the moment. This is our every third Wednesday of the month activity. So every third Wednesday of the month, you can block it off in your schedule na meron tayong ganito mga webinar. In this webinar session, very worshipful Teddy Cala will be discussing about lodge management, particularly about our petitioners. And as far as I can see, we already have 14 questions before we even started. We have 860 registrants who registered in this webinar. We have 374 already online. And our cable tow team, headed by our editor-in-chief, Harold Santiago, are streaming this live. Okay, so yung mga kapatid natin hindi nakapag-register at hindi makapasok sa Zoom, nakikita po nila tayo via live streaming, okay, ngayong gabi. So sa inyo pong lahat, maraming salamat sa pakikiisa nyo ngayong gabi. At alam ko po ngayon araw po ng kapanganakan ni dating Pangulong Manuel L. Quezon, na siya ang ating naging kauna-unahang Filipino Grandmaster. So isang makabuluhang araw po ng ating webinar ngayon dahil timing na pinag-uusapan natin ay ating mga petitioner. Dahil si President Manuel L. Quezon po ang naging kauna-unahang Filipino Grandmaster natin nung nagkaroon na po ng Grand Lodge of the Philippines. At sa gabi din pong ito, tayo po ay nagagalak na kasama po natin ang ating walang kapaguran at hindi na po ata nakakapagpahinga sa kakaisip para anong magawa niya para sa Grand Lodge. Ang ating pong kasalukuyang nakaupong Grandmaster, Most Worshipful Grandmaster Agapito S1 Jr. At siya po ay magbibigay ngayon ng kanyang mensahe sa ating lahat. Most Worshipful, sir.
Thank you, very worshipful Dennis. Brethren, we are here to discuss about the lodge management. This is our every third Wednesday of the month. So Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. I welcome you all once again in our continuing JLP webinar series. But firstly, let us all remember that today, August 19, marks an important day in the history of our nation and our Grand Lodge as we observe the 142nd birth anniversary of President Manuel L. Quezon. He was not only the second president of the Philippines, but also served as the first Filipino Grand Master of the most worshipful Grand Lodge of the Philippines. Let us at least dedicate this occasion to his memory. As usual, we are grateful to our ever reliable senior Grand Lecturer, Very Worshipful Teddy Calao, not only for his valuable time and effort, but also for ensuring that Masonic education remains regularly available to the brethren despite the lockdown. I am also thankful to our technical team, headed by Very Worshipful Dennis Conanan, for being on top of the means for making this possible. Gradually, we are becoming familiar with the online meeting, which is already widely used as part of the new normal, and this is how it should be now. Brethren, I am able to talk to you from my office at the Grand Lodge coming out of a 2-week closure. Beginning today, we resume limited operations with the staff alternating office works 2 or 3 times a week. It is now more than 5 months since the time we declared suspension of Masonic works, but it will interest you to know that we have not been idle in the Grand Lodge. We must give due thanks to our dedicated JLP staff and office personnel because despite the lockdown, we have done or have been doing the following notable projects. First, we have launched the full digitization of our files and records. This is hard work involving purely manual labor. Our records date back to the era when everything is written on paper, and we have tons of old records in the Grand Lodge in danger of rotting, not to mention being a fire hazard. You can see some of our output now uploaded on our website, beginning with the ANCOM proceedings since the formation of the Grand Lodge of the Philippines in the early 1900s. That part is easier, but you can imagine how hard it would be to digitize the records of so many old lodges in our files. I will implore the assistance, particularly of our centennial lodges, to help us digitize your own lodge records. I will talk to you about this some more as we finalize our plans in this regard. Second, we have recently updated our Masonic logbook, and now we are currently updating our various service manuals on Masonic ceremonies. We are also working on a new manual, particularly relating to the advancement of candidates for Masonic degrees. Please expect these updated and new publications within the next 2 months. Third, our cable tow has been launched online, beginning with the so-called pandemic edition. I hope that you have seen this recent issue and that you will agree with me that the format and substance are very, very impressive. Unlike the cost limitation of a printed format, we can now do as many pages as we can and publish as many articles as we can get, thanks to the advantages of online publishing and the superb management of the Cable Tow team, headed by worshipful brother Harold Santiago. We shall expect more from them. Fourth, we have launched the JLP online store. The walkthrough process has been held via Zoom last August 14. For those who have missed it, we shall post the needed guidelines in our website. The important thing is you can now access and purchase all Masonic items online rather than physically go to our Masonic store. Fifth, all lodges shall now have a permanent email address of their own, which the JLP has arranged with our service provider, which is Gmail. I want you to picture these emails if you will. No more papers, no more physical filing at the JLP, and all reports and communications from lodges to the Grand Lodge and from lodges to the members and vice versa shall now be done using this permanent email address. Shortly, we shall issue the guidelines and mechanics on this, but I can tell you that your email address will be easy to remember since it contains your lodge number. Brethren, I have been receiving various inquiries on the possibility of resuming Masonic meetings and works, and I can only tell you that your guess will be as good as mine. So many things remain unknown and uncertain, and we do not really know when we can open our lodges. But we know one thing, and that is we have to live with the COVID threat for a long time, and we have to bear this in mind. And so, if we open, we have to adjust our lodge protocols with the safety of our brethren as the foremost consideration. The hardest challenge is to adjust our ancient rituals to suit safety issues. We do not know if it could be done or should be done, but I want you to know that we are seriously studying all possible means which should be acceptable to all. Masonry has survived through devastations and hardships over centuries of existence. And as long as we remain steadfastly committed to our craft, we shall prevail. For now, nothing is more important than the health and safety of us and family. And in the meantime, let us listen to the very important topic we have on hand. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you very much, most worshipful Grandmaster. Definitely, the brethren will be inspired again to look into our website, as there are a lot of exciting things there again. Not only the pandemic issue of our cable tow, but also the online sales. This is something that they will be working on right now. Kesa po kung ano mga pinambibili ng mga kapatid, pwede na sila mamili ng mga Masonic items at madi-deliver din ho sa kanila. Again, good evening, most worshipful Grandmaster, and thank you very much for your message. Brethren, and to all who have registered in this webinar, I'm honored and privileged to introduce to you our ever dependable and our outstanding rock star lecturer. I call him the rock star of lecturers because every time they know that he's the one giving the lecture, hindi po bumababa na 500 na nag-sign up. Nag-overflow ang mga signage. Our lecture for today is about lodge management, and the topic is about sponsoring and recommending candidates to the craft. So particularly about our petitioners. So without much further ado, I would like to call on now our competent and very hardworking senior grand lecturer, very worshipful Teddy Calao. Sir?
Thank you, very worshipful Dennis, and thank you, most worshipful June. Very worshipful Dennis, can you allow me to, can you share my screen? Can you share my screen? It's the one with very worshipful, so we can start the presentation. Good evening, brethren. I understand that we have some international participants, so this will mostly be in English, but I cannot help but go lapse into Tagalog because there are a lot of jokes here. So I beg the indulgence of those from outside the Philippines when we do that. I'll try to translate if ever.
Teddy, you can host, you can share it now.
I think It's my other screen. It's not.
Wait. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, brethren. Our topic for today are in this third series of our webinars that we are providing monthly is sponsoring and recommending candidates to the craft. Let me highlight the session's objectives. Basically, just three. No, first, hopefully by the end of this hour and a half, you will be oriented on how to guide petitioners, the ones who knock on our doors, how to, as they enter the gates of Freemasonry, based on their potential source of entry. You will see that there are actually 4 sources of entry into the craft, not all of which we encourage. So you'll be looking at how to guide them properly based on where they're coming from. That's the first thing we hope to do today. Second, for those who are petitioners among you, we'll give a very big picture perspective of how a petition is actually processed. This is not secret. We are not trying to keep anything from those who are uh, petitioning to enter. We'd like to show you what the process is so that, while you're waiting, because it does take time, you will understand the reasons for that wait. Okay, so the second objective is to see how a petition is processed from the moment you give it to a lodge. In particular, we also want to look at the roles of 2 important classes of brethren in the petition process. The first is those who sign for petitioners, those who sign your petition. There is space there for 2 candidate proposers. They're not just supposed to sign that petition. We'll see what they're supposed to do tonight. And after that, we'll also look at what we call a committee on investigation. Committee on investigation is by Masonic law appointed by the worshipful master to investigate every petition. The petitioner will never know who these people are. Their identities is confidential, purposely to protect them. We will now look at later at the end of this presentation, towards the end of this presentation, what that committee actually does. So essentially, what we're looking at here is the process of going into the craft from somebody looking outside. Okay, so we wanna, of course, there are things that are confidential, which are inevitable in any organization, but the process itself is very open, and if you haven't been, for those who are petitioners, if you haven't been oriented, this tonight is your chance to look at how that process is. Having said that, for petitioners and all brethren, okay, I have to give you my standard warning. You will not be an expert on lodge management or even this topic after this session. The point of this session is to give a bird's eye view of what it is to guide someone who wants to join or somebody who thinks of he wants to join as he goes through filling out that petition and introducing himself to the lodge that is considering him. Okay? So 4 topics for today, this evening. First, who knocks on the 4 doors of Freemasonry? There are 4 doors, brethren, of entry into our craft. Not all of them will open. You will see. We're going to look at those 4 doors because each door symbolizes a source of potential entry for a brother. Okay, so we're going to look at those 4 doors. And then from there, particularly for petitioners, we'll take a look at the 3 stages of how each and every petition that is given to every lodges, the over 400 lodges in our jurisdiction, how each and every petition is processed, and how that process includes circularization across the jurisdiction of the brother's name and identity and so forth. We'll look into that because none of that is confidential. Then we'll look at the significance and three fundamental roles of those brethren, those two brethren who are willing to recommend the petitioner. Okay? In this regard, there's a typo here. With regards to petition for degrees, we'll also look at reconsideration, objections, okay, objections by brethren, and you will see why that's important later. And a look at the standard petition form. Finally, we'll look at the committee on investigation that is appointed for each and every petition. We've been growing, I think, at 3 to 5% every year until this year because of the public health crisis. That trend will continue. And as a past Grandmaster used to say during his term, it is important for us to guard the West Gate. For petitioners, you will understand what West Gate means when you finally enter the craft. Okay? But what happens? Who enters? What happens? That's what we're going to talk about, the process. And more importantly, who are the types of petitioners who enter our craft? Okay? Before we go to that, we have our first poll question. Okay? Just to see, brethren, who below can potentially apply, and this is important, immediately to join the craft in the Philippines? Take a look. This is our first of 3 poll questions today for those of you who are participating in the webinar. Who below can potentially apply, and the word is immediately, immediately to join the craft in the Philippines? A, someone who cannot read or write, illiterate. B, someone who has mixed motives, diba? Mixed motives, you have good reasons and bad reasons for joining. C, a former Christian who has lost faith, doesn't want to believe in God anymore. Or D, an 18-year-old son whose father has passed away, and that late father was a Freemason. So, brethren, who can immediately join the craft? Let's see your question. Let's see your answers. Kuya Dennis, can we post the poll? Who below can potentially apply immediately to join the craft in the Philippines? Someone who cannot read or write. Pwede ba? Someone with mixed motives. Okay? A former Christian who ends up not believing in God anymore. Or an 18-year-old son of a deceased Freemason. Okay. You may be surprised at the answer from the answers you are currently getting. If you cannot read or write, can you join? If you have mixed motives, can you join? If you are a Christian who has lapsed, whether you're a Protestant or Catholic or whatever, you no longer believe in God, can you still join? If your father has passed away, your father was a Freemason, you want to join, can you join immediately once you're 18? Okay. We have 280, 65% voting. We'll give them, what, 3 more minutes, Kuya Dennis? 1 more minute.
Okay na yan, Kuya Teddy. At least may pulso na.
Okay.
We'll end the poll.
And here are the results. Can we share the results? Can they see the results, Kuya Dennis? Can we share the results for everyone?
Yes. We're supposed to share it. Mali.
Nearly 300 of you answered. Kuya Dennis, can you show the results?
Sige, sandali ko ito idea. I ended it, pero ayaw pa niyang nagpo-poll in progress pa siya eh. Dali ah. Hindi ko alam ba't nag-poll in progress pa siya. Anyway, Kuya Teddy, we have for letter A, 5%. For
Okay.
B, we have 16%. For letter C, we have 0.
We have one actually.
May
One voted.
one voter. Yeah. But for letter D, we have 79%.
Okay. So first, let me congratulate most of you who did not pick C, obviously. If you no longer believe in God, okay, you cannot join, and you will find out later why. Clearly, you also have to be literate. Okay, for the few of you who voted A, I'm sorry to say this is a philosophical fraternity. Okay, if you cannot understand what we're going to teach you through what happens to you as you experience being initiated and what we call initiated, passed, and raised, then it's very difficult for you to learn. So it cannot be A either. Uh, the majority of you, there you go. The majority of you voted D. Okay, an 18-year-old son of a deceased Freemason. You will find out tonight that actually, while he can join when he is 21. Why? Because his father has passed away, and we'll give the reasons later. That leaves B, one with mixed motives. Bakit? Mixed motives and you can join immediately? That's what we'll find out when we go through the next the next topic, which is the 4 doors of Freemasonry. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Okay? You understand you must believe in God. You have to be literate. Why can someone with mixed motives join immediately? And why cannot a Lewis? A Lewis is someone who is the son of a Mason. Why cannot a Lewis join when he is 18 if his father has passed away? Okay. We'll keep B and D in mind first. But first, let's talk about the 4 sources of entering the craft. There are 4 sources. Let me just close the poll. There are 4 sources of entry into the craft. For those who have a predisposition to enter, and we'll find out who they are. We call those as potential petitioners who are knocking on the blue door, those who are qualified and oriented. For those who are deliberately searching to join us, even though they do not have a predisposition to enter and are otherwise qualified, we call them qualified and searching. They are effectively knocking on a green door, and you will understand why it's green later. There are those, however, who we have to be cautious for because the context of their joining shows that they have some bias, whether it's them or their family or those in their environment. There is some bias that we have to address. So because of that, we call those petitioners in a context that is qualified but biased. They're what we call the yellow door. And then there are those who cannot enter, who are not qualified. And they are faced with the red door. Let's talk about the blue door of Freemasonry. Those who are qualified and oriented. And for them, the door will readily open. Why? Because they have an orientation towards joining the craft. Who are these? Okay. First, remember choice D, 18-year-old son of a deceased Freemason. By virtue of the edict of Most Worshipful Tolentino a few years back, we lowered the age of joining from 21 to 18 for those who are Lewises, sons of Masons. If your father was a Mason, effectively, Most Worshipful Tolentino, when he issued the edict, highlighted that you are already predisposed to join the craft. Okay, but here's the thing. You must have parental consent, and potentially your father, if necessary, must be able to support your entry. That is why if your father has died already, okay, and the edict is very specific here. If your father has passed already, okay, then you cannot use this entryway. You have to wait 3 years. So, why is D wrong? Remember the question. Potentially apply immediately. Unfortunately, because his father has passed away, he can neither get parental consent nor can he, because he's still 18, potentially be supported financially and otherwise as he enters the craft. So he has to wait 3 years if he is a Lewis who wants to join. Okay? But still, assuming his father gives permission, then we should encourage them. And the theme here is we should encourage and guide him, particularly by making sure, if you look there, orienting them properly, and from making sure that their expectations are realistic. The Lewis might idolize his father so much. If he joins, you'll realize that many Masons are still in the process of building character. Okay? He might get disappointed. We have to make sure that their expectations are realistic, and we have to confirm their motivation, commitment, and preparation to truly join. Those Lewises, because of Edict 308 of Most Worshipful Tolentino, this allows them to join as young as 18 with parental consent and support. However, there are people there are men who also fall into this category who are not Lewises. Okay? For example, we have those who are alumni of the Order of Demolay who turned 21. They have essentially gone through something akin to what initiation, passing, and racing is. And usually, if that interests them, it's almost automatic, okay, for them to have an orientation towards us. That is why I would encourage more Masons to join the Order of Demolay. The Order of Demolay is organized and run by Freemasons for the Demolays. These are our younger peers, and it is effective. It can be a door to Freemasonry if done properly. Okay, and it's not just them. In one of one of the states of the United States, I cannot recall which state now, but a Job's daughter, okay, was invited to address the annual communication of the Grand Lodge. And she wowed the brethren by highlighting the fact that her positive image of Freemasonry has brought about making her brother, and this is, the grandfather had passed away, okay, who was a Mason, passed away. But because she had joined Job's daughter, her brother, who had no previous connection to Freemasonry, ended up joining the fraternity. Okay? So we have to also look at appendant bodies as potential sources because they have experiences akin to what we're doing. And needless to state, if you have a large number of friends who are Masons, okay, that is also a sign that maybe you should be joining. However, with regards to this third figure, I have to highlight, we have to make sure, we have to confirm that their motivation, commitment, and preparation is proper. Why more than 5? As you know, for all of us who are already in the fraternity, Freemasonry is a very personal experience. If you have just 1 or 2, okay, you don't want to encourage somebody to enter the fraternity simply because he or she just knows 1 or 2, because that might be an incomplete picture of the craft. Okay, but if you have a lot of friends who are Freemasonry, who are Freemasons, jackpot. This is the blue door. We should encourage and guide them with these 3 benchmarks. That is why we say that for those who are in front of the blue door, the door should be readily open. That contrasts from those who are faced with the green door. And there are 2 sources of petitioners here. Those who, because of exposure to mass media, like for example, you you read a good novel about Freemasonry or watch a movie about the Freemasons, or you are, motivated to join because, for example, today is the birthday of Most Worshipful Manuel Quezon. You idolize many of the men who have become Freemasons. Okay, but you have no indirect relationship with any Freemason. Okay, how do you join? Obviously, you have to approach a lodge. Okay, and if you're otherwise qualified, okay, it is important that unlike those in the blue door, because you are not naturally predisposed about the craft, it's important that we highlight education here. This contrasts from those who have a friend who's joining. Your best friend is in Freemasonry. You got curious, okay, but your only link to the fraternity is that one friend. We should be careful, brethren, because that experience of that brother might be incomplete. That is why for these two classes of potential petitioners, we have to educate them, and we have to explore. In particular, we have to do three things. We have to explore why they want to join. What ended making them look for us. Okay. Second, we have to make sure that their expectations are realistic. Okay. If you base it on, National Treasure, the movie, okay, you might think that there's, it's Freemasonry is all about being a global conspiracy when it's not. Okay. They have to realize what it really is. And it is a philosophical fraternity that aims to make good men better. Okay, so we have to look at making sure that they know what the fraternity is about. And for that, we have to make sure that when they do fill up that application, they have the appropriate motivation, commitment, and preparation. These two classes of petitioner. You're joining because your friend is already a Freemason. Not too many, maybe up to 5 of them. We have to make sure that you're joining not just because of them. You're joining because you truly want to be a Freemason. And for those who are searching and who otherwise don't have a connection to the craft, we have to check out the reasons for joining. We have to make sure that their expectations are realistic. And if they are otherwise qualified, that is why the door is green. The door should normally open for them. So we have the blue door, which readily opens because the petitioner has a natural predisposition to join the craft. We have the green door. If you are qualified with appropriate motivation, commitment, and preparation, that door should open for you. Okay? This contrasts with the yellow door. It's like remember a street light? There's a reason why that's yellow. In these three cases, the door should open cautiously. Okay? The first of these three cases, brethren, are those potential petitioners whose families or social contexts are not supportive of the craft. Whether we like it or not, there's a lot of fake news there going around, di ba? And a lot of that, because of our previous stance of just ignoring it, has not been addressed until very recently. Now whether it's in the Philippines or the United Grand Lodge of England, which is the mother Grand Lodge of the world, or other Grand Lodges, where we're being more assertive at combating fake news. But for a long time, a lot of this fake news circulates. Okay, I would normally be. I enter the craft through the blue door because my father, my grandfather, and great grandfather were Freemasons. But since my father died in 1974 and my grandfather died in 1985, between 1985 and 2001, okay, I had no contact with the fraternity. Okay, so much so that I had the social occasion. I knew my grandfather, Lolo Ted, Most Worshipful Tudor Calao Jr., Grand Master of 1974, I knew he was a Mason because I attended his Masonic funeral. But in that gap, in the late 1990s, when I was not connected with the craft, I effectively was outside the craft, and I ended up in a social context. We had a party where we had one of these um, Christian faiths who actively promote the fake news that Masons are devil worshippers. So naturally, when this is a distant cousin, when she gave me the tract, a tract is a small pamphlet that highlights the fake news. Okay, I was looking at it and I was saying, Lolo Ted, Death March, all the good things he did. Does he sound like a devil worshipper? No. That predisposition, okay, allowed me to avoid the fake news, even though I could not, at that time, because I was not in the craft, I could not say conclusively that it was fake. I knew that it was impossible because of my knowledge of my grandfather, but I could not say why. Those are the situations where many of our petitioners who are not connected otherwise to the craft, they face that. So, and because that's the situation, we have to make sure, unlike those who naturally seek out and do research, okay, we have to make sure that those is addressed. It may not be the petitioner. Okay, you'll find out later that a good part of the Committee on Investigations work is to also check if you're married. Okay, if you're married and your wife, for some reason, has significantly, because her family or your family has objections to it, that has to be addressed. Okay, that has to be addressed because we don't want the fraternity to become a source of conflict for somebody who joins. Okay, I'm fortunate. Okay, I'm fortunate that I joined. I was single. It's not that my wife has anything against Freemasonry. It's that one time he saw when we were in a gathering a shirt that says widows and orphans. Okay, and so she asked, "What do you mean by widows and orphans? Why do we call wives of Freemasons widows, even though the Freemason is still alive?" So I told her, you know what a golf widow is? A golfer who is on the course so much that the wife feels like she's a widow. Okay. She did not talk to me for 3 weeks. Okay. So brethren, be careful about joking about that kind of stuff. Okay. Needless to state, you have to make sure that your family is also supportive. Okay. Second, what is the second source of petitioners? Okay. In this class, those who seek entry because they believe the craft is something else. There are many groups who call themselves fraternities, college fraternities. We've had problems with college fraternities because of the way they initiate, which is not what we do. Okay, it's illegal if you physically abuse a petitioner, and that's not what the craft is about. If you have somebody who thinks that this is also a college fraternity, you clearly have to disabuse him from that. Okay? I am fortunate to have a double brother. Okay? A double brother who is not just a member of the same lodge. He's a former Supreme Court Justice, brother Art Brion. He's a member of the same lodge, and we call each other double brothers because we are also members of our professional fraternity in the law school. And those of us when we're in our professional fraternity, they ask, okay, how can you be have two fraternities, it's because it's different. Being a member of a professional fraternity is different from being a member of a philosophical fraternity. I have three fraternities. I'm also a member of Knights of Rizal, which is a patriotic fraternity. There are many also brethren who are also Knights of Rizal, and there is no inconsistency there because the aims of each fraternity is different. You have to make sure that they know that we are a philosophical fraternity, and if that's not their thing, okay, then they shouldn't join. Okay. Third, this is the reason why we are prohibited from soliciting. Okay, for petitioners and non-Masons who have joined tonight, there is a rule that Freemasons cannot solicit. We cannot recruit members. We are prohibited from recruiting. And one of the core reasons is that we should never compel somebody to join. And this usually happens if you are in a professional setting and your boss is a Freemason and you feel you may have to join because he is also a Freemason. That's not the case. Okay? That's not the case. You're not supposed to feel compelled to join simply because there are other members who are in the fraternity. Okay? So for these three classes, it's important, brethren, and for those of you who are participating, we're not members of the craft. It's important that we engage in dialogue. We have to make sure that any fake news out there, okay, and it's shifting, okay. These purveyors of fake news, it's shifting. If they cannot get you on devil worshipping, they will try to get you on the fact that in a lodge you're seated next to a Muslim, and they will twist the concept of religious tolerance that we practice. Rather than, for those of you who have not attended our two previous webinars, Masons practice religious tolerance. We in the sense that we believe, I practice my faith. I'm certain that my faith will triumph in the end, but I'm not gonna kill somebody. I'm not gonna kill a fellow brother. I'm not gonna, force that faith on another person, because that's not what lodges are about. Okay. One source of fake news is because you're tolerant of religion, you are effectively believers of each other's faith. No, that's ridiculous. Okay. So we have to engage in that kind of dialogue. Okay. And when we do that, we always have to highlight, okay, we should not aim at recruiting. We should aim at presenting the craft as it truthfully is. Okay, so no hard sell. Okay, do not encourage application for these men in these three classes. Never encourage them to apply. Okay, but always give them correct answers. Because whether we like it or not, the fake news will always be there. There are people who are motivated to have to do those untruths, and the best way to combat that is to address it squarely and truthfully. Okay, that way gradually they'll get to understand. Okay, they get to be realistic about what the craft is about. Okay, and here's where we have to understand the limitations of the process. You're a police officer. Your boss is a Freemason. Okay? If you come in, okay, into a lodge, and if you know him because you're also a police officer, and you check him, if it's clear he feels compelled to do so because his boss in that unit is a Freemason, then you have to not encourage application. You have to tell him, this is the fraternity, and you have to engage in dialogue about what it's all about. Okay? But if you can see from because you're friends, that his main goal is because he doesn't want to, you know, he doesn't want to go against his boss who's a Freemason, then you should tell him that that's not what the fraternity is about. But here's the thing. If you know his boss is a Freemason and you suspect that one of the reasons for him joining is because nga, he might want to try to curry some favor, this is where the limitations of the process is. Do not automatically qualify him because there appears to be evidence of mixed motives. And I must repeat that. Do not disqualify solely because of your perception that he is joining because he may have mixed motives for joining. Good and not so good. Okay? You have to presume good faith. Okay? Why? Because we all join the craft imperfect and we will all die imperfect. But the point of Freemasonry is that not that when you join the craft, you're automatically, an ideal Freemason. No, the point of Freemasonry is that when you finish with this life, your brethren will call you not just a member of the Grand Lodge, but a Freemason. You will fail a lot of times, but it's in that process of failing and getting up that you make yourself a better man. So those with where you see evidence of mixed motives, you should not disqualify. That goes to our B. One with mixed motives, if you can see that predominantly, he actually has good reasons to join the craft, even though there might be a conflict of interest. One with mixed motives should be allowed to apply immediately to join the craft in the Philippines. That is why the correct answer is D. Okay? So, are we saying that people with bad motives should join? No. We'll find out later. We're not saying that. We're saying if you perceive that some of those motives and the dominant motives are good, then the fact that that person is imperfect, you should not take that against him. You should allow the petition to proceed. Okay? So build and determine appropriate motivation, commitment, and preparation despite the bias context. If you can see that motivation, commitment, and preparation wise, despite this biased context, they can join, then we can open the door cautiously. Okay? That's why it's a yellow door. There is one final door, brethren. We know that for those in front of a blue door, we should readily open it. For those with a green door, we normally should open it. We know that for these three classes, okay, we should open the door cautiously, okay? Particularly, why? The first class, if the wife or there is significant bias in the family against Freemasonry, you don't want the craft to be a source of conflict. If that brother feels compelled to join because his boss is a Freemason, you should tell him to wait and learn about the craft more before he joins. Okay? If that petitioner wants to join because he feels it's going to be like his college fraternity, you should wait. Make him wait. Okay? Make him wait until he gets to know the craft further. Okay? You have to address the bias before you open that door. Okay? Otherwise, it's a red door. This is the door that never opens. Okay? This is the door for those who are not qualified. For petitioners, okay, you will see that when you enter the craft, all Freemasons have memorized this list. You will understand why you will also end up memorizing this list. What is that list? You ask a Freemason, who cannot join? That Freemason, everyone, especially those who have finished the 3rd degree, this list is memorized. They will tell you. Those who cannot join are a woman, a young man in his non-age, an old man in his that age, an atheist, a madman, or a fool. All of us memorize this, and you, as a petitioner, will understand that when you enter. This is the list of those who cannot join, plus a couple who, there are additional provided by our ordinances, but this is the list that is handed to us from time immemorial. As to women, okay, take note of what we're talking about here. A woman cannot join the Grand Lodge of the Philippines. That's what we're saying. We are not saying a woman cannot be a Freemason. Okay? I'm going to highlight that again. A woman cannot join the Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of the Philippines. I am not saying a woman cannot be a Freemason. Why? Because regular Freemasonry is a philosophical fraternity that is founded on mentorship. When you join, you are guided. Okay? You are guided by those who have gone before you. You obviously cannot develop yourself as a man if your mentor is not a man. That is the reason why we have a traditional prohibition. Are we saying women cannot be Freemasons? No. In the United Kingdom, there are different Grand Lodges, okay? What we call co-masonry or women Freemasons. The United Grand Lodge of England in the United Kingdom does not recognize them because they're not regular Freemasons. They cannot join the United Grand Lodge of England. But the United Grand Lodge of England recognizes the fact that our philosophy can be used and applied in a setting where a female mentors a mentee. So they're not part of regular Masonry, but who are we to say, and the philosophy is really beautiful, who are we to say that, that they're not Freemasons? They cannot join. They cannot join a regular Masonic lodge because our model is on mentorship. But if you look at co-masonry, the women there address her. They are applying Masonic principles in their own universe because it's a beautiful system. Okay? So that's what we mean. You cannot join the Grand Lodge of the Philippines. We are not saying that you cannot be a Freemason. We acknowledge that the philosophy can be applied in that setting, much the same way that we apply as Freemasons. Okay? A young man in his non-age, basically one who is not mature. Okay? Normally, the age is traditionally 21. Most Worshipful Tolentino has lowered that in his edict to make it 18. But if you are 18, you must have a father who is a Mason, and you must have he must have his consent. Okay? Not just him, also your mother. Parental consent. Okay? If your mother is alive, also your mother. But definitely your father who must be alive. Your father must be alive because he must be prepared to commit to supporting you. The craft has financial obligations, supporting you as you move forward in the fraternity, if you want to join at that age. Okay? So here we're looking at maturity. Because you have a predisposition to join the craft because you are part of a family that has a tradition in Freemasonry, the door will be readily opened for you if your father and mother consent and your father commits to support you. Okay? An old man in his that age, that means someone who is so senior, he can no longer understand the rituals. We are a philosophical fraternity. If you cannot go through initiation, passing, and raising and understand what we're teaching you, sayang lang. Okay, so for those who are extremely old, the craft closes for them. Okay, and then we have an atheist. Okay, What are we saying here? As the guru of all senior grand lecturers, most worshipful Danny Angles likes to highlight, there is no salvation in Freemasonry. I want to highlight that also. There is no salvation in Freemasonry. It is a secular Masonic philosophy. It provides you an ethical system that you must use with your faith. Okay? And therefore, it is incomplete without a belief in God. Because why would you do something? Why would you be compelled to really do something right if you believe that at the end of the day, we're all going to die anyway and end up nothing? No. Your faith provides the anchor for you to truly develop in this secular ethical system that you must attach to your faith and use it complementary. And therefore, okay, as provided by our ordinances, you must believe in a monotheistic supreme being. Does that mean, okay, if you're in the lodge, you have a Muslim here, you're Catholic, and there's a Protestant next to you, does that mean that you all share the same faith? Obviously, no. What Freemasonry is highlighting is that you're all entitled to practice your faith because you all believe that eventually your faith will dominate. What Freemasonry is highlighting is towards that judgment day, huwag kayong magpatayan. Do not kill each other over it. Okay? Try to learn to work together to better society until that judgment day. Okay? And today, some of us might think this is funny. That's a wrong way of looking at life. To this day, there is still religious extremism that highlights that if you are not of one particular faith, then you must be discriminated against. The reason why papal bulls were issued against Freemasonry was precisely because of this norm, our push to have religious tolerance in society. Okay, because back then the church believed that the Catholic Church believed that the government and the church must be joined. That was back then. Okay, that's what we mean by Masonic religious tolerance. Okay, you must believe in a God because you must have a faith to ground your philosophy. Okay, brethren. Here's a thing that many Masons don't catch, even when they memorize this list. They think that a madman and the fool are the same. No. There is a reason why when we make you memorize this, okay, the terms, there are two distinct terms for this. A madman is somebody who does not have sound mental faculties. In short, you cannot comprehend. Nasa ano ka, Mandaluyong mental hospital because you cannot comprehend. If you commit murder, you would not be able to stand trial because you did not do it with discretion. Okay, that's a madman. Somebody who cannot understand going through initiation, passing, and racing. That is different from a fool, and this is where mixed motives comes in. Remember our discussion on mixed motives? A fool is somebody who believes that he wants to enter the fraternity for mercenary motives because he will enrich himself by selling all these trinkets that he will create once he becomes a Mason. Okay? Or, he's doing it solely because he wants to cuddle up with his boss or something like that. Okay? We call these people who, or either that or somebody with totally unreasonable behavior. Okay? And you can sense this when they introduce themselves to the lodge by the way they ask questions. You can sense that, mahirapan sila. It will be difficult for them to gel with fellow brethren because they're so unreasonable with the way they think about life. Okay, but primarily, those with purely mercenary motives that should not enter. We don't call them madmen because they can think. They are not madmen. They are fools. They are fools because they think they can join the fraternity with that in mind. That is why the list is a madman or a fool. They are two distinct concepts. Okay, so many brothers don't know the difference. That's the difference. Okay, also pursuant to our Masonic law book, there are also, from time to time, in addition to this traditional list, prohibitions set in place. If you are illiterate, you cannot understand our philosophy, you cannot join. If you are somehow physically unable to conform substantially to, you cannot, it's very active, our initiation, passing, and racing. If you cannot physically be able to do it, you cannot join. If you have simple means, okay, and you have not saved enough, okay, we're not preventing you from, there are Freemasons who come from honorable but simple professions like driving a taxi, okay? As long as you have saved enough so that you can pay dues and you provide for your family, okay. But if you are foolish enough to think that you want to join first and you have not provided for your family, particularly in case, something happens to you, you cannot join. That's why the Committee on Investigation has to check that. Okay, you have sufficient financial means. We're not trying to discriminate. We want to make sure that you provide for your family because there are financial obligations on the part of the fraternity. Not a lot, but there are. Okay, if you're not a resident, okay, of where the lodge is, you cannot join. Okay, there's a definition of that in our Masonic law book, in our ordinances. And if you are rejected by another lodge, if you're rejected by another lodge, you have to eventually go back to that lodge where you were rejected if you want to reapply. We'll see that later. Or if you are rejected by another jurisdiction, you cannot join. That goes automatically to the Grand Lodge. You cannot join because of that rejection. Okay, so in these cases, the door never opens. Can it open? It depends if your situation changes. You're 17. Your father says, son, I'm a Mason. I encourage you to join next year when you're 18. When you're 18, you're no longer facing a red door. In that instance, because of your father's support, you're facing a blue door. The door should open readily for you with appropriate guidance and encouragement. Okay? So those are the 4 doors of Freemasonry, brethren. And it's important that we know where, or we try to determine when a petitioner approaches which door they're facing. Okay? When they open that door becomes the west gate. Okay? But before it transforms into the west gate, we must know what door they're facing before it transforms into the west gate when they enter. Okay? For petitioners, you will understand what west gate means okay? So, now is the time we now know that there are 4 classes of petitioners. Let's now go to the petition process. And for that, we have our second poll question. Very petition that it's not just about the balloting. A brother can object and your petition can be denied. It is equivalent to rejection. It's that simple. Yes. Okay? So, for those brethren who want to answer this question, when is a brother's objection to a petition not equivalent to rejection of the same? Let me clarify here. We're looking at, there's a petition, you object. And under our Masonic law, that is equivalent to rejection, no balloting. Okay? When is it not equivalent to that? Okay? Not equivalent to that. One made, nabalot na. The ballot has passed. Okay? Can a brother object and say, no, sorry na lang? Okay? Or B, one made immediately, kare-receive pa lang ng petition. Petition received. I object. Okay? Is that automatic rejection? Is that or is that prohibited? Okay? When is it not automatic rejection? Look at the question. When is it not automatic rejection? You receive the petition. I object. Is that equivalent to automatic rejection? Okay? C, a petition is received. It's read to the brethren. Okay? After the meeting, a brother goes to the worshipful master and says, Worshipful sir, I object. But nothing is filed in writing. It's made orally. Is that equivalent to rejection? Take note of the question, okay? When is it not equivalent to rejection? Which means, in 3 of these cases, that objection is equivalent to rejection. That rejection is equivalent to rejection. What about D? One made immediately after initiation. There are 3 degrees: initiation, passing, and raising. You get balloted, and then you are initiated. And then a brother says, up, I object. Is that equivalent to rejection? Okay. Okay. Very worshipful Dennis. Let's have the poll. A. Okay. Is it A? Okay. Is it A? One made after balloting, but right before initiation. Natapos na ballot. The ballot was clear. There, you see there, the ballot box. He has been admitted 3 degrees, but then, before initiation, there's an objection. Is it B? Kakukuha lang ng petition, may objection na kagad. I knew you were gonna join, I object. Is it B? Is it C? Kakukuha lang ng petition, it's read in a stated meeting. After the meeting, a brother goes to the worshipful master. Worshipful sir, I object, but doesn't file anything in writing. Okay? Or D, one made immediately after initiation, but for sufficient cause. Okay, we have almost 180 brethren of our 456 who have joined us this evening.
460.
460 na ba? Okay. Make sure you vote, Kuya Dennis.
Kasama.
Okay. Wow. A lot of brethren do not know about this right to object. I'm going to give a caveat later. Okay, I'm going to give a caveat later about this right. But for the meantime, let's talk about this right to object. Take note of the question. The question is not asking you. It is not asking you. When you object, is it equivalent to rejection? No. You must assume that all of this except one is an objection that is not equivalent to rejection. What is the only answer here where the objection is not equivalent to rejection? That means all the other 3 may objection, tapos ang boxing. Okay? Okay. Are we good? O 270? Let us...
We'll end the poll.
Okay. Very worshipful Dennis. Let's...
And we share the results.
Yes. Can we share the results? Okay. The majority, most of you, not the majority, but 36% of you said, okay. Let's go with the clearly wrong answer. One made after balloting, but right before initiation. A few of you said that's the case. That's a wrong answer. Brethren, if you look at our Masonic law book, if an objection is raised, timely raised before initiation, if an objection is timely raised, then the petitioner can not proceed unless that objection is withdrawn within 60 days of it being known during the stated meeting. Okay, it's going to be announced by the worshipful master. What happens then? Your degree fees are returned. So just because you got balloted successfully does not mean that you can proceed. Okay. What about the ones who voted most? C. Okay. Most of you, 100 of you, 36% of you voted C. One made orally before the worshipful master. Petition received. It is reported to the brethren confidentially. The worshipful master now, you will see later, creates a committee investigation. One of the brothers say to the worshipful master, okay, worshipful sir, I object. You will find out in the Masonic law book, even if it is orally, even if it is an oral objection, that will kill the position, that will kill the petition. It need not be in writing. An oral objection before the worshipful, manifested before the worshipful master, okay, is sufficient, because the worshipful master will then, in a stated meeting, highlight, brethren, there is an objection. We must therefore deny the petition because of the objection of one of you. Please note, okay, if the objection from the date of that announcement is withdrawn within 60 days, in short, na-resolve, okay, then the objection is deemed terminated, okay, and you can proceed to balloting subject to committee investigation. But it can be in writing and oral. Okay. What about B? One made immediately after a petition is received. Yes, that is. Some of you voted. 69 of you, 1/4 of you said this is the no. It's not equivalent to rejection. That's a wrong answer also. From the moment a petition is received, okay, any brother can have a right to objection. Okay, that leaves us with D. Why is D the right answer? Teka lang, sufficient cause. One made immediately after initiation, but for sufficient cause. Okay, why is that the case? We'll find out later. Okay, we'll find out later. But first, let's go forward. Let's talk about the initiation process. It's 3 stages, brethren. There are petitioners and brethren who want to know about this more. This is a review for you. There are 3 stages. There's nothing secret here. A petition, and you will be assisted by 2 proposers, okay, because they must sign that petition. If you are deemed ready, okay, you are in a blue door, you enter through a blue door readily. The green door is normally open for you, or a yellow door. You are, after dialogue, you are deemed worthy and well qualified to proceed. 2 brethren will assist you in doing that petition. Okay. Please note there are prohibitions against rejected candidates. You cannot, if your petition has been rejected by another lodge, you cannot forum shop. You cannot go to another lodge. Okay. As a matter of fact, we'll see later. Once you file a petition, unless it is withdrawn, and there are very limited reasons for withdrawal, you'll see that below. That's it. The lodge assumes jurisdiction over you. Okay? Even if you go outside, if your residence changes, the lodge assumes jurisdiction over you. Okay? So, and if it's a rejected candidate from another jurisdiction, the more so. Okay? Now, all of this, once you file the petition, we have what we call our weekly Grand Lodge Circular number 12 series. Your name, your occupation, okay? The fact that you have filed the petition, that is circularized throughout the jurisdiction. From Hajibutu Lodge in all the way down south, to Okinawa Lodge and Rising Sun Lodge in Japan. Okay? So that is circulated. Your name is circularized throughout the jurisdiction. Why? Because we want to make sure that there's no forum shopping, and we want to put brethren on notice. Any brother, take note, any brother can object. Okay? Now, when it's circularized, Okay. Investigation will happen. How? By the worshipful master appointing confidentially a committee of 3 brethren who will conduct an investigation, which we'll go into later. Assuming these brethren do their job, it goes to the worshipful master. Whether they say okay or not, they recommend rejection. If the worshipful deems that they've indeed done their job, it goes to the Grand Lodge Inspector. By virtue of an edict issued by Most Worshipful Rentohi, it goes to a Grand Lodge Inspector. He must sign off. He must certify that the committee has done its work. Okay. And while that's happening, okay, the 2 proposers must be introducing the petitioners to brethren during this process so that they will get to know them better. Here's something that very few the brethren, some brethren forget, some lodges. Okay. Please note that Most Worshipful Purisma in Edict number 270 provided a requirement that the lodge secretary must certify that no derogatory information or objection has been received at the end of this phase. In short, the phase ends when the report is ready to be read out. At that point, the secretary must put in the minutes. He must certify, issue a certification that no derogatory information or objection has been received. Bakit objection? Remember the poll? We'll find out more about that later. So assuming no objection, no derogatory information, the committee report, if there is derogatory information received by the secretary, he's going to have to give that to the committee. Okay? So his certification will be to that effect. Okay? But let's say the committee report is ready. Passed the worshipful master, certified to by the Grand Lodge Inspector. It can have 2, there are 2 situations now, possible situations. If it's favorable, then we go to balloting. Remember this, that is how we do balloting in Freemasonry. White balls and black balls. That's why you have the term black ball. You do not want to see one black ball when everybody votes. They put it in the if you see this ballot box, they put it there in the they get a ball and then they put it inside, and then the drawer is opened at the end of the process and it's inspected by the officers. Okay. So if there's only one candidate, okay, first of all, there must be a ballot in all 3 degrees. It must be unanimous. If there are more than 3 petitioners, 3 or more, actually 3 or more, then the worshipful master can opt for a collective balloting to expedite the process. But if there's one black ball, let's say there's one black ball and there's only one petitioner, you do a repeat to make sure that there's no mistake. If there's one black ball, then by a process of elimination, you figure out which petitioner was blackballed first, and then you do the balloting again as to him. Okay. Please note, if there is an unfavorable ballot, brethren cannot discuss why. Okay. If the committee report is unfavorable, there is no balloting. So you can see this is a mountain that you're climbing here. There is no balloting. The worshipful master will simply declare the petitioner rejected, and your application has been rejected. However, there are exceptional circumstances recognized by our Masonic law book. The first of this is that in certain disqualifications, the petition at the option of the worshipful master can be withdrawn. There are three where the petition can be withdrawn. If it's withdrawn, that means there's no rejection. Okay. 1, lack of sufficient residence. You are not a resident because you don't work there, you don't live there, you were not born there. Okay. In that the case, the worshipful master has the option deem the petition withdrawn so it will not prejudice the petitioner. He can apply somewhere else. Okay? If it's withdrawn. If it's rejected, you will find out later you have to go back to that lodge if you want to enter Freemasonry. Because of your physical disability, okay? Take note, the red door. The red door, okay? If you are physically unable to conform substantially to the initiatic experience, okay? Then, you know, you cannot, what do you call this? Enter. So that it will not prejudice you, the petition can be withdrawn. And you can apply somewhere else, hopefully when you get better. Or if it is within 12 months of rejection. So that you don't end up with a new 12-month period, the worshipful master, if there's a mistake, can withdraw it. Okay? Also, if there's no balloting yet, if a petitioner leaves the lodge's jurisdiction, as long as the lodge consents, he can withdraw his application. As long as there's no balloting yet. Okay? Before I go, brethren, I forgot to say something about the red door. There's the traditional list, right? Okay? Yun sa ordinances, from time to time, as I highlighted, the Grand Lodge can provide additional qualifications for entry. And it can also take them out, as long as it's part of the ordinances. What is an example of a disqualification that was taken out? As you know, for those of you who are familiar with my lecture last June, the Grand Lodge was formed in 1912. That was a time of prohibition. At that time, okay, there are two stories to this. Because of prohibition, there was strong prejudice against those who serve alcoholic drinks. So we had the prohibition up to last decade, prohibiting saloon keepers and those in similar professions from joining. Okay, why did that end up staying so long? Because it actually was it turned out to be quite practical. Because once brethren were finished with their meeting, when during fellowship, ready na daw yung alcoholic drinks, because you had saloon keepers who could not become members. Needless to state, Most Worshipful Ebdani, through edict during his term, 2005, I think, if I can remember correctly, he said, teka lang, mukhang malabo na to. We should not keep this going for almost 90 years. Okay, so that prohibition was taken out. So our ordinances can add additional prohibitions from time to time. Okay, so assuming you go through this, okay, you get balloted, okay, then you pass and are ready to, your door becomes what we call West Gate. You now are able to enter. It transforms philosophically. Now enter the fraternity through its West Gate. What does West Gate mean? Petitioners, that is for you to find out if and when you do enter. Okay, so what's important is that you know the three stages. You have a petition. There are two brothers who will help you out with it. You file it. It will be circularized. Do not make the mistake of faking something in that petition, because, you know, we had that situation also during the time of Most Worshipful Ebdanye. He was claiming that he was a master mason. He wasn't. Nasibak siya. He was kicked out eventually. That's why there's the petition circularized. There's an investigation, and if there is no objection, your petition is brought. If it's favorable for balloting, you must go on unanimous ballot. And if there's a mistake, if there's a black ball, you're done twice to make sure that there's no mistake. Okay, which leads to the two most popular questions given to grand lecturers with regards to the initiation petitioning process. Okay, first, most favorite question: what happens if it's rejected? What if there's a rejection? Okay, relax. Okay, there are remedies. The first remedy is you can judge. Okay, let's say for example, objection and the worshipful master feels that it was because a brother did so unmasonically. Okay, and subsequently the trial is the same way, so that the brother is disciplined. Okay, if within 12 months the lodge can in a thing or a special meeting where you provide notice of such, if brethren usually decide to seek consideration, they can go to the Grand Master, or in this case, his personal representative in the district, which is a deputy district Grand Master, and they can ask for a dispensation to reballot within 12 months. Okay? Within 12 months. If after 12 months, okay, no need, the worshipful master can entertain a second petition from that brother. And take note, the brother cannot now go to another, cannot forum shop. If he was rejected in Nueva Ecija, he cannot go to Makati and say, I'm from Makati. I work in Makati. I live in Makati now. No. You must, the lodge has assumed jurisdiction over him. He must go back there. He can refile, and the lodge can entertain it. Needless to state, there are these fees that have to be paid if you are rejected. Those degree fees, okay, the degrees that you must pay if you are initiate passing race, they will be returned to you. Okay, so that's a rejected petition. Let's go to objections. Okay, this is a very powerful right, and here I have to raise my caveat. Okay, this applies to brethren in the lodge. Okay, a brother with standing. Take note, with standing. If you have no standing to vote, you understand that the 6 meeting rule. Okay, if you have no standing to vote, you cannot exercise this objection. This is a very powerful objection because, okay, any brother with standing can privately object, orally or in writing. Orally or in writing before balloting. Now we go to the poll. If before balloting, that objection is the equivalent of rejection. Unless 60 days after the worshipful master reports it, it's withdrawn. Okay? Same thing applies if the objection is made after balloting but before initiating. Before initiation but after balloting, also equivalent to rejection. So there, you have the 3 wrong answers. Immediately after petition received, objection equivalent to rejection. After successful balloting, no black ball, objection, and this usually happens if you are not able to attend. You can still use your right to objection, automatic rejection as long as no initiation yet. Oral objection, in any of these 2 cases, no problem. Okay? What happens, however, if he is already initiated? Between initiation and raising, pwede pa mag-object. You can still object. After raising, sorry, that's it. But between initiation and raising, you can object, but the rules become different. That is our correct answer here. One made immediately after initiation, but before raising, you can still object. Okay? But now the rules are different. It is not equivalent to rejection. The worshipful master now will determine, is the cause sufficient? You have to give a sufficient cause. If he thinks it's insufficient, okay, it's easier to deny that objection. He reports it to the brethren and gives the cause, the alleged cause. If the brethren, by majority in open lodge, vote to reject the objection, tapos ang boxing. You are deemed, okay, to continue. So a simple majority vote can reject the objection. However, okay, if he believes the objection is sufficient, he will now require a committee to investigate. Okay, so hold off muna yung passing or raising. the committee will investigate first and present its findings to the lodge. Here, in order to reject the objection, you must have a 2/3 vote by secret ballot. By secret ballot. Why? Because you have a preliminary determination by the worshipful master na, yes, mukhang sufficient ang objection. Okay? So whatever the committee decides, okay, now, because of that determination, the committee will give a recommendation. Whatever that recommendation is, there must be a secret balloting and 2/3 vote, okay? 2/3 vote must be done in order to reject the objection. In short, there is some sort of bias in favor of the objection now. Okay? If there's a 2/3 vote, you can continue. If not, the objection is sustained. Okay? So, with that, let me give my caveat. Two major points here. You must be a brother in good standing to use this objection. Good standing, huh? If you cannot vote, you cannot use this objection. Second, abusing this objection is unmasonic conduct. Let me highlight that. If you abuse this privilege in any way, and you are deemed as such, okay? If you're not a past master, it doesn't go to the Grand Lodge for trial. You will be tried by your brethren on Masonic conduct, and this is one of the grave. A worthy and well-qualified petitioner from entering by abusing this privilege of objection. Okay. So going forward, let me just give a few highlight about. There is a standard petition form. Most worshipful Momo, worshipful 320 provided a standardized form. This is not sold. You can readily get it from a lodge. If they don't want to give it from you, you can get it from the Grand Lodge. Go to the Grand Lodge in Playa del Masonic Temple in Manila. You can get it. It must be filled out in your handwriting because that is. There must be evidence that you did this willingly in the presence and with the guidance of two proposers. If you look at the form, there is also at the provision there for two character references. They need not be Freemasons. Okay? They need not be Freemasons, these two references. But your two proposers must be. Your two proposers must be Freemasons. Okay? Ano bang ginagawa ng proposer? That is our last poll for this evening, brethren. Our last poll for this reading. What is not a role of a candidate proposer? Understand the question. What is not? In short, all of these roles except one. One of these roles is not the answer. Parang Sesame Street. All of these roles except one is not the role of a candidate proposer. Is it A? Check the candidate's commitment and motivations for joining. Is it B? Ensure the candidate's petition process properly. Hello, what did we just talk about? Okay. C, serve on the committee on investigation and investigate the candidate. Or is it D, introduce the candidate to other brethren of the lodges? Okay. One of these things is not like the other. Very worshipful Dennis, let's have the poll. Okay, what is not the role of a candidate proposer? What is not? Negative, ah? What is not the role? One of all of these, they're the role of a candidate proposer except one. Except one. Except one. Here is our next poll question. Like I highlighted, Freemasonry is a philosophical fraternity that is founded on the mentorship to make good men better. It's founded on male mentorship. That's the classic. That's one of the classic pictures of that of that form of mentorship, brethren. Okay, we're ready. Are we ready? Most very worshipful Dennis.
Okay, let me end the poll now. We have already 66%.
300. Yeah, okay. 300 to the 460 voting. And here are the results. Congratulations, brethren. The of you, tama ba? 3 out of 4 of you are correct. Indeed. You cannot be a candidate proposer and serve on the committee on investigation at the same time. Clearly, it's not B. If not, you were not listening to my discussion in the previous slide. And A and D, you will find out they are really roles of candidate proposers. So congratulations, brethren. That is correct. Why? Why C? There's a conflict of interest. You cannot recommend and investigate at the same time. Okay? So let's go forward. What is a candidate proposer? Okay. Candidate proposers are two brethren who sign the candidate's petition. In many cases, tragically and wrongly, that is the end. They think that is the end of the road. That is not the case, okay? Those signatures are not just the signatures, okay? If you look at this form, it is here. This one, these two, okay? Their signatures on that form is a certification that they are recommending the candidate to readily enter the blue door, to normally enter the green door, or that sufficient reasons exist that we can open cautiously the yellow door. Okay? And furthermore, that they will also to continue to fulfill their fundamental roles in this, the application process, these 3 stages. Okay? What are those roles? There are 3. Okay? There are 3. Let me wait for the to catch. Okay, let me wait for the presentation. There are 3 fundamental roles. Now that the presentation is catched up, there are 3 fundamental roles to being a candidate proposer. The first, you will remember this because I have purposely highlighted role models for this process. The first is that you must be a gatekeeper for the craft if you are a candidate proposer. Okay? You must ascertain the qualifications, motivation, and commitment of the candidate. Why? Because usually you should know him personally. If not, get to know him better, especially if it's a yellow door, investigate. Usually naman, if you are joining and your source of being a petitioner is your friend, that friend will be your recommender. Okay, so your friend as recommender, you have to check qualifications, motivation, and commitment. Supreme being, good moral character. Okay, and then you must conduct the initial interview where you engage in dialogue or you educate. Make sure that his expectations are correct. Okay, that he is truly worthy and well qualified. You also have to check, okay, if the family, particularly the spouse, is a supportive. Huh? Do not make the joke about Masonic windows. If he repeats that to his wife and the wife takes it wrongly, nako, baka we might lose one there and there. Okay, relax. Be careful about jokes. Okay. In short, you are there to guard that West Gate. Brethren who are in the CAF know what West Gate means. You are the gatekeeper before you sign that petition. Okay? And for our role model here, I must highlight our senior Grand Steward, Very Worshipful Lini Hernando. For those of you who do not know Very Worshipful Lini, he's actually the equivalent, or he was the equivalent of, he's a Filipino version of James Bond. I'm not joking. He was a military intelligence officer, okay? And you have to be in that frame of mind. You have to be an intelligence officer, okay? You have to be like Very Worshipful Lini, okay? You have to be a gatekeeper of the CAF, okay? You have to objectively say, is he truly worthy and well qualified? And to do that, you have to know the 4 doors. The 4 doors will help you, okay? Gatekeeper for the craft. Role 2, you sign it na. okay ka na. Your gatekeeper function has been fulfilled. You guide him on the petition, you sign it. You file it. Okay? This is a gun of the process. And here, being a guardian, dapat hindi ikaw yung bida. You're not the hero of the process here. Is the candidate. You must support him through the process to make sure not just that the application is complete, but that he is treated fairly appropriately. Okay? We cannot say this because a role that no one will thank you for, not even the candidate that you are. Okay? You will note later when I go into what a committee report contains, you will also have to assist the committee because they're going to ask you questions. Okay? Do not expect to be thanked here. Do not expect to be thanked. But know that when you do this, you are doing you are participating in a fundamental part of being a craftsman. Okay? And for our role model here, I want to highlight someone who nobody really recognizes, but who's always there to help our most worshipful Grandmaster. He's always there accompanying him. He's always there to make sure that at appropriate occasions there are appropriate breath mints in place and the seal of the Grandmaster is present and all of that. In short, he's the guardian of the dignity of our Grandmaster. He's none other than the aide-de-camp of Most Worshipful June, Brother Gulu Menghunjani from Cagayan de Oro. Nobody thanks him for that. Yet he does, okay? What he does day in, day in out. When the Grandmaster speaks, somebody has to, the president of the seal has to be there, or our protocol's wrong, okay? He does a thankless job, but it's essential. That's you, brethren, when you are a candidate to the camp of the Grandmaster here, the camp of the candidate. Nobody, not even the candidate, will thank you because the candidate, until he is a Master Mason, will not know that you are doing this job for him. And it can be problematic sometimes, okay? If you, for example, is abuse on the candidate, okay? You have to bring that to the attention of the Worshipful Master and the Grand Lodge Inspector. Okay? Final role. Brethren, you are to guide the date. Even before he files that petition. If one is appointed the Worshipful Master, usually, the Worshipful Master appoints a separate mentor in addition to the two proposers. But many Worshipful Masters sometimes forget, especially in lodges that don't have this system, there's no designated mentor. If there's no designated mentor, that's you. You are the mentor by default. Sometimes the Worshipful Master, the system is the proposer becomes the mentor. It depends on the lodge. But whether you are formally appointed or not, you are that candidate's guide. You are there to provide initial Masonic education. And you are there to introduce the candidate to the brethren. Bring him around, get him to know his likely brothers if his balloting succeed and he is initiated, passed, and raised. He will have a lot of questions, particularly if he is okay? Think of yourself as your friendly neighborhood, miniature, mini, grand. That's your duty. The basic questions you have to ask, okay? Now, when feasible, this is not part of guidance. This is separate. When it's feasible, and particularly also when you have a role, it will mean a lot to that candidate if you are there during his initiation, passing, and racing. Because he doesn't know what he's getting into. Your presence will help him stabilize him during a very exciting time. Okay? And lend support for him. Okay? My role model for it is none other than the Senior Grand Lecturer Emeritus. Grand as Secretary, for those of you who don't know, lecture, we all know practice of some brethren of SGL shopping. The SGL doesn't give you the interpretation you like. You try to go to another past SGL, and if that past SGL says something that, well, maybe I think this is like that, you go to the SGL and says, PS plus SGL. We all know that happens. Okay, that's what Grand Lecturer shopping. When that happens, there is a quick remedy for that. Okay, whoever is the incumbent SGL, he goes to the office of Most Worshipful Danny, and he asks Most Worshipful Danny, "Oh, Most Worshipful Danny, what do you think?" Once Most Worshipful Danny has spoken, that's it. End of discussion. Okay, that is the end of discussion among SGLs. Okay, so that means Yoda has. I'm sorry, the SGL of SGLs have spoken. Okay, that's what you are to the candidate. Okay, you are his resource. Okay, like Most Worshipful Danny is to all of us who have to take on this role as Grand Lecturer, whether as SGL, Junior Grand Lecturer, District Grand Lecturer. Okay, you have to be a resource. Okay, with that, okay, so now we're familiar with being a candidate proposer. Because you are recommending the candidate, needless to state, brethren, you cannot serve on the Committee on Investigation. Okay? At the start of this presentation, I knew Very Worshipful Dennis was going to have something on me. So now is my revenge. Okay? Committee on Investigation, okay, is a committee required to be appointed by the Grand Master. Okay? I'm sorry. Appointed by the Worshipful Master to strictly examine the moral, mental, physical, and other qualifications of the petitioner. So this happens at stage 2. Petition, investigation, and familiarization, and then balloting, consideration, right? Stage 2. At stage 2, while the candidate is being brought around by the candidate proposer and gradually introduced to the brethren, the Worshipful Master will confidentially appoint 3 brethren. Like the 3 brethren here, di ba? Our incumbent SGL, our Chief of Staff, and our Assistant Grand Secretary. If you want to know, this is the official uniform of the GLP anti-COVID response task force. Okay, why are the 3 of us there? Because the Committee on Investigation must do one thing, and there is one standard for that. Standard is staff work. Okay. Complete staff, the 3 of us, when we work under Most Worshipful June, or the staff who is grand, they give it to their grandmaster who they're serving. That grandmaster was, if you look at the recommendation sheet, it's either approved or disapproved. Okay? If the grandmaster, and this is not necessarily Most Worshipful June, it can be another team. If the grandmaster has to scribble something there, has to annotate something there, that is not complete staff work. Ideally, when something is given to the grandmaster, he either takes out disapproved, that means it's approved, or takes out approved, that means it's disapproved. Okay? If he doesn't do that, he gives it back for reworking. Same thing with the committee. The committee must do complete staff work to examine the moral, mental, physical, and other qualifications of the petitioner. Okay? To arrive at one conclusion. Do we recommend acceptance or rejection? That's it. 3 brethren, 3 amigos. Okay? Their identities are only known to the Worshipful Master. So the committee, petitioners, you should know there will be a committee. That's not secret. you can read that in our Masonic law book if you get a copy. You will never know, however, the identity of the members who compose that committee because only the worshipful master knows. Okay? When the committee finishes with the work, it goes before the worshipful master. If he deems it sufficient, okay? If he deems it sufficient, Most Worshipful Rentoy issued an edict. Most Worshipful Rentoy is this person here. If you look at the arrow, he is this, our former past Grand Master. He issued an edict requiring Grand Lodge inspectors to actually inspect the report. Why? Brethren, this is because it's happened, okay? There are lodges where wala, oral lang yung report. Okay, pwede na yan. Okay? That is not, what is that not? That is not complete staff work. So, Most Worshipful Rentoy, okay, issued Edict 275. How do we make sure that there is complete staff work? Okay? There's complete staff work. Okay? The committee has done its report. If the Worshipful Master says, okay, pwede na to, and gives it to the Grand Lodge Inspector. Ito, this one. This is the Grand Lodge Inspector of Very Worshipful Rainer Lorenzo of Cavite, one of our DDGMs in Cavite. The Grand Lodge Inspector will now, he has no influence on whether to, on the recommendation. No influence there. The sole role of the GLI is to check that the committee has that it has sufficiently complied with the Constitution. The role of he certifies that to stage 3. If it is for rejection, no balloting. Tapos ang boxing. If it is for approval, then you have balloting. We're asked, what if the GLI got sick and you cannot, does that mean you cannot ballot if it's favorable? In that case, you go to the DDGM, ask for a dispensation. The DDGM will check the report. He will do the work of the GLI. He will issue the dispensation. Okay? So that is the role of the Committee on Investigation. Final topic, brethren. Teka lang. Ito talaga si Very Worshipful Teddy. Complete staff work. Ano ba talaga gagawin natin? Brethren, the standard for what a Committee on Investigation has been present since the 1960s. Okay? Most Worshipful Quasha, William Quasha. If you don't know Most Worshipful William Quasha, you've never been to St. Luke's Medical Center. One of our outstanding legal luminary, Grandmaster sometime in the 1960s. Outstanding legal luminary. He was chair for quite some time, St. Luke's Medical Center. He built that institution. In Edict 60, he provides the benchmark for what a committee on investigation should do. Okay? You do not have what Most Worshipful Quasha provides. Okay? Edict 60 provides guide questions. If you is in your report, okay? 1-pager, 2-pagers. If you have this, you've done complete staff work as long as you've done these questions. What are these questions? Remember the second role. Remember the second role of the guardian in the process. Okay? Assist the investigation committee. That's because you've done your role as gatekeeper. Okay? You've done your role as gatekeeper. Do not reinvent the wheel. The Committee on Investigation will now ask you, do you know this candidate? Okay? Personal knowledge of the candidate. Okay? How do you know him? Are you prepared to really, what is the basis for your recommendation? Then you go to why is he worthy and qualified? His character, commitment, and reputation. I'm not going to read the questions anymore because we're pressed for time. Character, commitment, and reputation. Okay? If you know him, what can you say about him? Is he a good person that can be developed better? Is he prepared to really join the craft? How do other people view him? Okay? And then You have to look at something practical. Will he likely attend the lodge? And this is practical. One of my brethren in my lodge was my joined. He was my he's also my fraternity brother in my legal fraternity. We were fellow associates in the same law firm when I was with that law firm. He joined after me, but because he's not near the lodge, eventually his membership lapsed because he found it hard to attend. Okay, so brethren, this is what you have to ask your proposer. So paragraph 1, how do you know the candidate? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Paragraph 2, character, commitment, and reputation. Paragraph 3, can he really attend? Okay. Yun. With that, okay, then these are guide questions that you must pose to guide. Will you post this? It's up to you. Okay. How can you post this? Remember that your identity, if you are a committee member, is confidential. You have to do it in a way that the candidate does not know that you are a part of the committee. How? Fellowship. After the meeting, you post these questions. Or you have somebody post them for you and you're observing. Particularly because petitioners, they know that this now, those who are watching this, they know that these are questions that you're likely to ask, okay? So, and these are not secret questions. These are practical questions. So what else will your report contain aside from what you've asked the candidate proposers? Do we know that he's truly prepared? You go back to the 4 doors. What are his motivations? Okay? Mixed motivations are enough if good intentions predominate. I cannot highlight that enough. Mixed motivations are enough if good intentions appear to predominate. Okay? And expectations. Look at 5 and 6. Okay? 5 and 6, questions 5 and 6 here relate to expectations. Baka kala niya college fraternity to, hindi. Okay? Finally, commitment. It takes commitment to be in the craft. Okay? That is why Louis, without a father, okay, or whose father has passed already, he cannot enter the fraternity until he's 21 because his father is not there to support him. The reason why we're allowing him earlier entries because the father is there to support that commitment. Okay? That's 1 or 2 pages, brethren. It must be in writing because after the worshipful master checks it, the GLI will check it and certify that you have followed the Masonic law book. Okay? So, brethren, what have we learned today? We know the 4 doors for entering into Freemasonry, the 3 stages for how a petition is addressed. Preparing, filing, and circularization, 1, investigation and familiarization, 2, and consideration of the petition. Okay? And we now know what the roles are of candidate proposers and the secret, the committee is not secret, the secret members, okay? The committee on investigation. What is the role of the candidate proposers and what is the role of the committee on investigation? That, in a nutshell, is how you enter the craft. Thank you very much, and let's now go to our Q&A. Can we go to our Q&A? Very
Yeah,
useful, Dennis.
Kuya Teddy, maybe you can check them. You can see the questions.
I'll just
You can run them down. They're like 79 questions.
okay.
And by the way, we picked 465 in this Zoom, past 582 in Facebook. So 1,047 people been listening. And our Facebook Live was able to reach 10,421 people by 9 p.m. So I think you're really a rock star, Kuya Teddy. Not just a Tres Amigos.
Very well, brethren. It's a nice topic. We have a long tradition of SGLs doing what thing now. Okay, but thank you, Kuya Des. let's now go to the questions. Okay. What is the proper protocol regarding the vetting of candidates from a different jurisdiction? If they're accepted, well, obviously, if they're accepted here, they can apply for affiliation. Okay. If they're already master mason in another jurisdiction, they are not petitioners. They apply for affiliation here if they move residence here. Okay. If they move to a where a lodge can assume jurisdiction over them, that's the protocol. If they were rejected, I'm sorry, they cannot join. Okay. Ano po ba ang main reasons kung bakit ang Knights of Columbus dito sa Philippines ay di pwedeng pumasok sa atin craft? There is no prohibition on the side of Freemasonry. As to the side of Knights of Columbus, you have to ask them. Please note that the Knights of Columbus practice a lot of this. It's not the same, but have a similar protocol, similar to particularly to our Knights Templar. But in order to be a Knights of Columbus, you have to be Catholic. Okay? If you go into the history, you will see the reason why. I am not an expert on Knights of Columbus. You have to ask them. Needless to state, there is no prohibition on the part of the Grand Lodge of the Philippines. If you are a Knight of Columbus, you can join. You can join Grand Lodge of the Philippines. To be specific, Lodge Pearl of Grand Lodge of Scotland is here in the Philippines. Yes. Okay. Brad, with regards to Lodge Perla, you just email me separately. May I ask po, will there be an election for a new set of officers this December 2020? If we restart, well, no. I'm sorry. I take that back. The term has been extended. So technically, this is an extended term. Our next election will probably be next year. Okay. Brethren, there are like 81 questions. I'm only going to throw. I'll go through the questions that apply to the topic. Okay. So because it's already 9:22. Okay. Materials will be furnished. Are there violations in mishandling candidates? Yes. Please look at the edict issued by Most Worshipful June earlier this year on proper handling of candidates. That is going to be the topic of, I think, January when we take that edict up. What will happen to the petitioner status whose names are published and read in open lodge already, and COVID-19 situation comes in? They're still petitioners. Those who have been circularized are still petitioners until they're balloted. Is it obligatory to vote if you're present? No. You have a duty to vote, but it doesn't constitute Masonic misconduct if you refuse to vote. Okay, but you have a duty to vote, but you're not, no one will take it against you if you have your reasons for not voting. That effectively says you're effectively giving a white ball if you do that. I believe there was an incident in the past where a rejected candidate tried to apply with LPDO. Lodge Perla del Oriente, I assume. I have no clue. I'm not a member of Lodge Perla del Oriente. So you have to ask that lodge. Lodge Perla del Oriente, by the way, is the lodge, the sole lodge here of the Grand Lodge of Scotland. It predates the Grand Lodge of the Philippines. A petitioner submitted his petition and was read in open lodge. He suddenly had a change of mind and submitted another form to another lodge. Cannot be done. Once you submit your petition and it has been read in open lodge, the lodge assumes jurisdiction. Like I said earlier, in order for you to change, you have to withdraw the petition with the consent of the lodge. That's very clear from our rules. Can we receive confirmation by email of attendance? We're still for those who finish all 10, we are seriously considering issues of giving certificates of attendance. We're still trying to find out the logistics of that. There are petitioners that have been petitioning for more than a year. Okay? Not permitted due to personal issues. Okay. And they're still blackballed. Okay. There are worthy candidates that should be permitted, but needless to state, brethren, if you feel that unmasonic conduct is taking place, you should report that. Let me highlight a very clear case in Virginia in 1989. The Grand Master went to the lodge because there was a clear accusation of a brother being prevented, being blackballed solely on the basis of race. What the Grand Master did was deemed that the balloting be deemed clear. So there are remedies if you believe that there is misconduct happening, whether in balloting or the misuse of objections. Okay? There are remedies. You ask your Grand Lodge inspector or your district Grand Lecturer. A petitioner was read his petition paper in one lodge. Then the DDGM asked the petitioner to transfer his petition to another lodge. That cannot happen without the consent of the current lodge. Okay? Without the consent of the current lodge. The present system allows unscrupulous brethren to exploit the ballot. You cannot, of course you can charge. Of course it's happened. The best solution for that is for you to call out the violation. If he is a member of the lodge, the trial will be held before the lodge. If he is a master or past master, it is before the Grand Lodge. Okay? Call out the violation. In terms of it, look, we are all of us are imperfect men. Okay? We are not, we are not angels. What's important is that we get up after each failing. Okay? And we can only get up if you call out the failing. In terms of petitioners, are they obliged to contribute any improvement of the lodge? No. No. As a matter of fact, there is a prohibition. In our Masonic law book, there is a prohibition against petitioners sponsoring refreshments. Okay? If that happens, that is unmasonic conduct. Okay? You cannot make petitioners sponsor refreshment. Can a petitioner who was blackballed by a lodge be released or allowed by the said lodge to transfer? No. If you reject him, he is yours for eternity. So after 12 months, he cannot. You cannot say, go to another lodge, please. No. He must go to you because you have assumed jurisdiction over him. It can no longer be transferred once there is rejection. How long does it take to get our new, you ask Most Worshipful Dennis, okay, usernames. I'll only ask, please, these are quite a long list. I'll only go through those questions related to the lecture, okay? If it's usernames, you ask Kuya Dennis. You could have texted that to him already. 18 or 21 years of age, it does matter, okay? Yes, it does. Is he capable of, obviously, if you understand, he must be financially capable. His father must be alive to support him if necessary. An illiterate person, if the person petitioning has a photographic memory, I'm sorry, brother, I cannot understand your question. If he has a photographic memory and he's literate, no problem. Most Worshipful Calao, well, it depends. When you say Most Worshipful Teodoro Calao, you're either referring to 1974 or 1928. 1928, that was Most Worshipful Teodoro M. Calao. 1974, that was Most Worshipful Teodoro Calao Jr. Brethren, can I please, I will only answer questions only from, with regards to this lecture so that we can continue. Autistic person has a good memory. Yes, but you have to determine if he can understand and go through the initiation. So doesn't automatically disqualify autism. You have to qualify if he can understand the process. Okay? As a regular member of the lodge, do you have the right to question the decision of the worshipful master who declares the balloting in a collective manner? No, that's his discretion. Except if there are only two brethren, for example. Because balloting, 3 or more, you can have collective. Okay, but the rules are clear. If it's one or two, or if it's two, okay, you cannot ballot collectively. Okay. Is the blue door not a door for solicitation of candidates? No. Take note, brethren. If it's a blue door, they have a if the brother is entering via the blue door, what we're highlighting is he has a predisposition to enter the fraternity. But you're not going out there and saying, "Uy, sumali ka na." That's solicitation. Can you suggest? Yes. And you can suggest and say, your father was a Freemason, right? And if that inspires curiosity, not a problem. But for you to say, if you join, you're gonna be good for the fraternity. That's solicitation. Okay, solicitation is salesmanship. Okay, education is not solicitation. Brethren, I don't know. Knights of Columbus again. I do not know what the Knights of Columbus, what their rules are, but there is no prohibition on a Knight of Columbus from joining the Grand Lodge of the Philippines. Okay, there's none on our end. I don't know about their end. I am not a Knight of Columbus. Can you accept a former woman, now a man? Obviously, yes. Yes, he's a man. You will respect his sexual identity. What happens? Okay, this is interesting. What happens from a woman who's a master mason a man who becomes a transgender, naging woman? We do not have that case yet in the Philippines. Okay? But in the Grand Lodge of United Grand Lodge of England, they've recently issued a ruling saying he can remain a member as an exception to our mentorship model. Because we accepted him as a male, we will consider him, regardless of his sexual orientation, we'll respect that, but he can remain a member. Can a gay obviously be a Mason? Yes, he can. Okay? How does that affect our mentorship model? Well, it does in a sense affect it a bit, but you have to sexual orientation is not an automatic disqualification from Freemason because sexual orientation change. Okay? Or it can have degrees. It can have degrees. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know how strong those degrees are. But I'm going to tell you now, it is not an automatic disqualification. What is the origin of the term Lewis? The Lewis is a block. If you have an arc, brethren, the one on top is a keystone, okay? The Lewis is a form of rock that is similar to that keystone. That's why we call them Lewises, because they are hewed from the same quarry, from the same stone. That's why we call it Lewis, okay? What will happen to a brother Mason who changes gender? I just told you that. In the UGLE, there is a ruling already. We do not have a ruling yet. I cannot speak yet as to the Grand Lodge of the Philippines because we do not have a ruling yet. Yun, Lewis conceptually is the support, the lift of an aging Mason. That's it, same thing. Okay. Just how made provisions for a family is measured. It depends on the context. It depends on the context. It's the candidate proposer must check. Can a petitioner who has applied and been rejected, blackballed in a lodge a long time ago, but was able to get clearance from the old lodge to reapply? No. You have to go to your old lodge, the one that rejected you. Okay? The one that rejected you. That's it. That's permanent. Okay? Should parental consent be in writing? It's on the form. Parental consent, it's on the form. Okay? It's in their standardized form. No. Where is the petitioner is asked if he's illiterate? It's there. Okay? The determination has to be made. And it's a violation of our ordinances. Okay. Okay. Let me tell you how do you know if a person is illiterate? Okay? Take note of the form. He has to fill out in his own handwriting. If you are illiterate, you do not know how to write. So you cannot fill out the form. It's that simple. Okay? You have to fill it out in your own handwriting. An illiterate cannot do that. The communication with okay. Well, circularization just has its faults. Brethren, if you want to be sure, please note our website. It religiously comes out with the regular circular number 12. Please enjoy going through all the circular number 12s there. So it's readily available. You don't have to wait for the circular number 12 to be mailed to you. Okay? If rejected by a particular lodge, okay, but accepted by another lodge, because no nga eh. Brethren, this is the last question I'm going to answer with regards to other lodges. If you are rejected, you must go back to the lodge that rejected you. The lodge cannot waive that. Okay, what if the objection came from a brethren of different lodge of the same jurisdiction? That constitutes derogatory information. You have to give that to the secretary. The secretary has to give that to the Committee on Investigation. But only a brother with standing in the lodge can make an objection that will disqualify. I will say that again. Only a brother with standing in the lodge can make an objection that will disqualify. How about if the petitioner attended to stated? So, well, he cannot be in attendance because he's not allowed inside. Okay? As long as your petitioner has filed, let's say he attended to stated meeting, he has not filed yet. He goes to another, okay siya dun. So he files there, no problem. Let's say he attended 2 stated meetings. On the second, he filed, yun, dun na siya. Okay? You cannot go to the third stated meeting and go there. Okay? You have to apply in the lodge where you are resident at. And residence, if you look at our ordinances, means different things. You have a choice. If you're working in Manila but live in Quezon City, okay, you can apply in a lodge in Quezon City because you live there. You can also apply in a lodge in Manila because you live there. And in Manila, there are 4 Masonic districts. Oh, so take your pick. Okay, take your pick. Can any brother object to a petition before any lodge? Okay, or is the objection limited only to the brethren of lodge? Only an objection is limited. I cannot emphasize it enough. An objection is limited only to a brother in good standing of that lodge. Again, kung ikaw, not a member, and you have derogatory information, you give it to the secretary. That secretary will give it to the Committee on Investigation. Okay? Oh, I have another same question here. Okay. Regarding lodge management, can a new lodge be created? Wait, brethren, I'm only going to talk about petitions now. Okay. Can a suspended Mason from other Grand Lodge apply? That's affiliation. You have to have a demit and you have to be in good standing. Okay? Affiliation is not petitioning as a petitioner. Okay? Okay. The lodge has already balloted the petitioner and is ready for initiation. A letter of objection was received from another lodge. If it's, if it's not used by a brother in good standing, sorry, that's it. What if Worshipful Master ignored the oral rejection? You cannot. The Worshipful Master is bound to report the oral objection, not a rejection. The Worshipful Master is bound to report an oral objection if it is from a brother in good standing. Okay. What is the use of circular number 12 when someone from another lodge objected? Di ba you cannot interfere with other lodges? No. Teka lang. The point of circular number 12 is if you know somebody to be a crook, You have a duty, if his name appears in number 12, to report it to the lodge. Because you, as a non-member, that is not equivalent to objection. That constitutes derogatory information that the lodge should know. That person is a crook, is convicted of, of estafa or something. You have a duty to report it. Okay? That's not interfering with the business of a lodge. Okay? If you're doing chismis, the lodge will know that. They might get pissed at you, so don't do it. That's also unmasonic conduct. When do we consider a petitioner as having come under the jurisdiction of the lodge? The minute he files his petition and it's accepted by the lodge. Is there a way a rejected petitioner from A can apply to another lodge? No. No. Just to clarify, can a lodge release or waive jurisdiction? No. Okay? Except, hindi pa nabalot. Hindi pa nabalot, yes. Lodge can consent. If there is abuse on the role on the part of investigating committee members, that's unmasonic conduct. Okay? That's unmasonic. Like, for example, that Virginia case. A committee not the committee, but somebody blackballed, unmasonic conduct. The Grandmaster directed that the ballot be deemed as clear. Criteria for good standing. Brethren, I'm just gonna go with petitions now, okay? If objection is made after balloting but before initiation and the worshipful master finds sufficient cause, why is it that only 2/3 vote is required to reject the objection? Why does the unanimous rule not apply? Because, take note, this is a recognition. While there's a bias in favor of the objection, this is a recognition that a previous ballot has already been made. Okay? In the Masonic Law Book, after initiation, before passing, or after passing, it is stated that the reason for objection must be stated. Yes. Okay? Okay. There, you have to, it can be oral. It becomes in writing when the worshipful master puts it on record. Okay? Okay. There's a question, okay? There's this norm. Not to recommend anyone in the participation or privileges unless you have strong reason to believe that by a similar fidelity, he would ultimately reflect honor to our ancient institutions. How does this relate to mixed motives? It means what it says. You should not automatically disqualify if you perceive mixed motives. But if you perceive him to be a person who can develop in Freemasonry, that's the norm. Okay? You should cautiously admit him. Okay? Or cautiously recommend him. Should oral objection be made personally? Of course. You cannot do it by hearsay. Ha? It cannot be, uy, sabihin mo nga kay worshipful master. Hindi pwede yun. Okay? You have to do it personally. On the objection of the required 2/3 after initiation. So if there are 10 members, should the 7 members agree? Okay. 2/3 nga of those attending outside this province or municipality, is he allowed? Look at the definition of residence. Where you're born, where you work, where you habitually reside, the definition of residence is quite broad. Okay? Very worshipful. Can a Father Mason be a proposer? Of course. Of course. That is one of the best proposers because you raised him. Now, if you are the father and you don't want to propose him, that says a lot. Okay? You should be one of the proposers if it is your son. Okay? You should. Okay. What is the main difference between a sponsor and proposer? Same thing. When you say candidate proposer, you are a sponsor. Okay? What if there's an objection coming from other lodge, the same jurisdiction? I already answered this. If a petitioner has been rejected in our grand jurisdiction and becomes a master mason in a jurisdiction that we have amity relations with, okay, what happens? You can complain. Okay, go to the office of Grand Secretary. We will tell you how to complain. Remember, that's a different Masonic jurisdiction. Okay, how can we protect the Westgate if some brethren has mercenary motives? We have this system. Committee on Investigation, candidate proposers, balloting, objection. Okay? That's why we have that system in place to protect the West Gate. Okay. Candidate objection with sufficient ground after initiation. Okay. If after, isn't he already an entered apprentice Mason? Yes, he is. But we recognize that after initiation, okay, if there are sufficient grounds, the lodge will determine if he can proceed further. If he is rejected, okay, he will stop at entered apprentice. Okay. Proceeding further, brethren, just to tell you that there will be copies of this lecture to be distributed. Okay. Somebody petitions, nainip, wants to withdraw. The lodge has to consent to the withdrawal. Okay? It is not up to the petitioner. And it would be very bad form for him to ask to withdraw simply because nainip siya. Mabablockball siya. Okay? What extent of support could the proposer lend to the petitioner? Those three roles. Remember the three roles.
Can I have the smoke?
What if there's only one proposer?
Listen.
Hindi nga pwede. You must have two. You must have two. What if only one has personal knowledge? Then that's why the second, before you go to the second stage, you have to ask one to get to know him better. Okay? That's why nga, if you look, if it's less than 5 members, bakit hindi green door? Bakit yellow door? Kasi nga, you have to get to know them better. That's why hindi green door. That's one of the reasons why. Okay? Brethren, I'm not gonna answer anymore about the Knights of Columbus. Last, there is no prohibition in the Grand Lodge of the Philippines for a Knights of Columbus member to join. I don't know why. I don't know about them, but us wala. Okay? Is it right for a lodge member to reject a petitioner just because there's conflict between their wives? It depends. Okay? If you foresee that it has nothing to really do about the wives, but the fact that the wives is anti-Masonic, you might want to discourage the petitioner kasi you don't want to create internal disharmony. What you shouldn't do is nag-away yung dalawang wives, nag-away. That's not a ground. Okay? That's not a ground for discouraging a petitioner. Can a Hindu be, as long as he can convince na he's monotheistic? I understand that there are Hindus. There are some forms, I'm not a Hindu, but there are some forms of the Hindu religion where that's not the case. Therefore, they cannot. In the Philippines, you must belong to a monotheistic faith. Can a balloting proceed if GLI and SEC have not given their cert? One word, no. Can a petitioner with teka lang, let's say 7 days have passed, hindi nyo mahanap yung GLI, you go to the DDGM for dispensation. Can a petitioner withdraw from a lodge in favor of yet another? Hindi nga eh. What is the GLI stand on rejecting master masons from other jurisdiction? If you're rejected, you cannot join here. There was that all three are not supposed to know each other. Okay, that's not the rule now. Okay? That's an interpretation, but that's not in our Masonic law book. Okay? So they're in confidence, but they can help each other finish the report because they're supposed to submit it. Okay? A petition has been initiated at first degree and then suspended. A suspended master mason objects. Sorry, I just told you, brethren, the objection must be made by a brother in the lodge in good standing. Okay? Can our lodge release petitioner even after he's balloted? No. What happens to a rejected candidate? I've already said. Okay. I'm sorry, brethren. I do not know who Albino Campo is. But if you're saying you cannot jump ship, okay, you cannot jump lodges, but you can choose the lodge where you apply. Like I said, if you live in Quezon City but work in Manila, and you don't want to go to Manila, you pick in Quezon City, that's up to you. That's up to you. Go to the lodge where you feel comfortable. Okay? Go to the lodge where you feel comfortable. Okay? Again, we will distribute copies of this lecture. Many members who are OFWs. I understand, brethren, it's difficult for them to be members of the Grand Lodge. Okay. Brethren, I understand. Even in affiliation, it's very difficult to be a member of the Grand Lodge of the Philippines, unlike other jurisdictions, because you have to assert residency. We understand that. If you want the rules to change, remember my lecture. Seek to have them change. Okay? But you must be a resident, and you must follow the residency rule in order to be a member of the Grand Lodge of the Philippines. If you want to change that rule, I am a member of Massachusetts, England, UGLE, and District of Columbia. There's no rules like that. But in our case, whether you're affiliating or petitioning, there is a rule. So if you want to change that rule, please go ahead. That's not jurisdiction of SGL. That is a jurisdiction of the Committee on Revision of Constitution. Please go to them. COVID pandemic. When is balloting? When will it happen again when we resume activities? Okay. Can you object in absentia? No. It has to be personal. Gay, qualified, not an automatic disqualification. As a matter of fact, okay, in general, you should not disqualify just because he's gay. Okay? We have a traditional model, but we do not have a rule that says you must disqualify because of sexual orientation. Okay? Newly raised but transferred to other areas, and then demit. Okay? Go to another lodge. Okay? Your mother lodge will continue to be your mother lodge even though you demit from it. Okay? You will just have a new first lodge. That's what it means. Limitation on how many times a petitioner can be blackballed. No! You can be rejected today. Go back to the lodge 3 years later, rejected again. You get rejected over 9 years. On your 10th year, the brethren says, yes, he will enter, no problem. There is no limit on the number of rejections. Okay? No limit. Okay. Brethren, okay, when there's a balloting, everyone present must vote. But what happens if one actually does not vote? Like I said, as I said, one of you are saying, okay, it's an obligation and not just a duty. Brethren, let me highlight, it is your duty to vote. But will anybody question you, okay, if you don't vote? Okay? Nobody, I don't think anybody will go out of their way to make a Masonic complaint and compel you to stand Masonic trial. Because your refusal to vote, okay, it means that you whiteballed. You gave a white ball. Okay? So, can you theoretically say that, yeah, I want to complain. This guy did not vote. You're just making it hard on that person. That person, by not voting, effectively has cast a white ball. Okay? So, what I'm highlighting here is, there are things that you should object to. Like, for example, hazing. Or making a candidate pay for refreshments. But if a brother feels like, doesn't want to actually cast the white ball, you can go into and cite a rule and say that duty is actually an obligation also, but you're just making it hard for the lodge. Okay? That's not the spirit of our fraternity. That brother has effectively cast a white ball. So respect is right. Okay? Demolay is considered a predisposition. Yes. Are they all automatically predisposed? No. They might, they might not have liked their experience. We don't know. Okay? We don't know. Okay? Is there no limit in requesting for dispensation? No, there's no limit. But it has to be unanimous if there's a reballoting. But there's no limit. Yes, of course. If you want, the copies of this lecture will be distributed. Feel free to use it. I hope you take notes. Feel free to use it in your orientation of petitioners. There's nothing here that's secret. Okay? Just make sure you don't tell them the reason why the Master Masons memorized that list of disqualified. Don't tell them that. Okay? That's for them to know when they become Masons. But everything here is something you can use. Okay? Feel free to distribute this to petitioners. What if there is a petitioner and the lodge is dissolved or suspended? Then well, I have to look on it a bit further, but I think this is a point because there's no more lodge. He can do another petition, but he has to disclose that fact. Okay? And I think he has to disclose that fact because the lodge was dissolved. Objection, I guess you know have to do personally, orally, or in writing. Can a petition purge his petition paper? Like, for example, his address. You have a right to privacy, brethren. The address is, of course, we will respect your right to privacy. And yes, you can ask the Grand Lodge. We will actually entertain that if if your right to privacy you feel needs to be better protected, we can provide measures for it in circular number 12. Okay, but you have to address that to us. Okay, if you look at the form, there's an opt-in provision kasi. So you have to address that to us. If you are a petitioner and you have considerations of privacy in place. Okay, we're almost there. If you're raised, you cannot petition again, okay? You're a raised Master Mason already. Okay. What is returned is the degrees fees, because if a petition is rejected, okay, what you must return are the degree fees because you did not take the degrees. Okay. Okay. Unmasonic conduct. Brother objecting to a petition without reason. Okay. This is a matter of proof. You have to consult with your worshipful master. If the worshipful master believes, okay, because here's the thing. If it is a objection filed immediately after the petition, the worshipful master must be the one to discern because that is an automatic rejection. It is a worshipful master and you, if you have reason to believe that is, okay, unmasonic conduct, it's been abused. That is for you and the worshipful master to discuss. Okay? Received by the lodge once it's accepted by the secretary. Okay? And reported to the lodge in a stated meeting. Okay? If it is received by the secretary, walang pang stated meeting, there's nothing preventing you from, before the stated meeting, requesting the worshipful master if you want to go to another lodge to pull it out because there's no stated meeting yet. But you have to ask the permission of the worshipful master. Okay? Can a reformed ex-convict enter? Good question. Okay? Generally, conviction disqualifies, but I have to actually research that. So, but our first and second degree can continue if there are some absences, but the lodge can also, there are provisions for the lodge to hold them accountable and prevent them from continuing. Okay. A person who's a member of a college fraternity wants to join Freemasonry. Is he allowed to join? Yes, obviously, no problem. You just have to check. You just have to check he has the right expectations. Okay, this is not a college fraternity. Okay, petitioner was rejected. Filed a letter of reconsideration. Yes. Okay, depends on the lodge when he can be reballoted. Within 12 months, meeting called with notice of reconsideration, unanimous endorsement to the DGM. Can joining, whether you're joining or petitioning from another jurisdiction, you must meet the residency requirement. Okay? If you are resident here, you can keep your mod in the same way that we are allowed to be brothers, members of overseas of jurisdictions overseas. Like me, I have 3. You can also keep your lodges abroad if you are a foreign member. That's not a problem. What's important is that you have a residence here. Okay. Derogatory information, that's up for the consideration of the lodge. Brother from another lodge gives derogatory information, that is up to the discretion of the lodge addressing the petition. They can ballot. If it's clear, it's clear. That's up for them to decide. What happens to a rejected petitioner who secretly joined another lodge? Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Sorry. When you are found out, and you will be found out because of the grand circular number 12, or eventually you will be found out, and when that happens, you will be banned from Freemasonry. So please, petitioners, don't do it. Okay. Thank you for those who have given thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed. We will distribute copies. Don't worry. We will distribute copies of all lectures. Okay. As a matter of fact, if there is a demand for it, I might write this out so that it can become written form. Para there's no error in the future. Proximity-wise, I live closer to a neighboring city's lodge than that of my own. Will it not be an issue to join the former? It's up to you if you're a petitioner. If you want to join in Manila, you work in Manila. Even though you live in Quezon City, it comes out, it's more convenient for you because after work, you go to the lodge. No problem. It's up to you. Our residency rules are one of the most liberal in regular Freemasonry. It just so happens that you must follow the residency rules. Can an objection be made electronically, email, or phone? Yes. Because Philippine law recognizes electronic documents, it's considered in writing, but you have to make it in person. You can do that via text. Okay. Of course, the Worshipful Master has to report that. Okay. Raised but not yet finished his last proficiency. Can he participate in the ballot? No. Kaya nga, proficiency after the 3rd. Okay. Can the brother join 2 or more lodges in the case? Yeah, of course. You have a limit now. There's 3. In the Grand Lodge of the Philippines, I only have 2. Because before there was a limit of 5. Now it's 3. If you have 5 already, you can keep the 5. Okay. What if there's an objection coming from other lodge of the same jurisdiction, and yet the Worshipful Master turned a deaf ear? What will happen? The lodge is the one that decides. If it's clear ballot, it's clear ballot. Okay. You must defer to their judgment because that's their lodge. They're sovereign within their lodge. Can a petitioner apply again to another lodge? Even he already know jurisdiction, lodge jurisdiction over you. Lodge A, but was not balloted due to a problem from a member. And after several years, petitioned Lodge B. No, cannot be done. He's stuck with Lodge A. Pwede ba kung yung isa o dalawang signatory lang? Hindi, dalawa nga eh. Petitioner is an honorary member. Huh? No, teka lang. Members in good standing, okay? It cannot just be honorary members, okay? It must be members in good standing if you must sign that petition. No. If you're given a petition, you kept it, you never submitted it, no jurisdiction. that the identity of members in the committee is kept secret. Yes, it is. It's a law, Masonic law book. Members of the committee, their identity is kept secret. It's okay. Okay, fellowships. Okay. Fellowships. Okay. Petitioner. You make them attend so that they get to know your members. Problem? No problem. Why? That's part of familiarization. You keep putting bottles in front of them. If they keep drinking and you see na hindi naman, they can take it, no problem. But if you're abusing it, na ano na sila, nahihilo na, that can be abuse of process. Okay? If you make them pay, that is unmasonic conduct. Okay? So, encourage them to attend fellowships, but do not make them pay. Pandemic continues. I'm sorry, no balloting yet. There's a limitation of 3 lodges in membership counts foreign affiliation. That's not settled. Okay? To be sure, play safe. We have not yet settled yet. You may have to ask the Committee on Jurisprudence to settle this. I don't want to break the rules. That's why I'm stuck. Because I have 3 foreign and I have 2 local. And I did that when 5 pwede pa. But now 3 na lang. Okay? So, do we count foreign lodges? There are some jurisdictions, we haven't settled it here. There are some jurisdictions that don't count because in the first place, you have no jurisdiction over those lodges. But if you want a strict application, you might. We haven't settled the question. So if I were you, play safe. For those of you with 5, whether foreign or local, tama na. Okay? I mean, but if there's 3 na lang ngayon. Okay? Can the washerman master serve as master of 2 lodges at the same time? Why not? But my question to you is, why do you want to? Okay? Why would you want to? What would happen to a balloted petitioner of a UD lodge that has not been given a number? If the UD lodge does not continue, he can transfer the petition. Fellow craft mason under a UD lodge that has been dissolved, he can also transfer. He has given a certain amount of time. Brethren, it's 10 o'clock. I'm very sorry to have kept you, but I hope that my answer to the questions was helpful. Kuya Dennis?
Well, I think we got it all covered.
Ang dami nun.
Yeah, Kuya Teddy. And it took you another long time just to be able
Sorry
to
for that.
answer all the concerns of the... Well, I think this is the most questioned webinar that we have so far. I think this is how engaged our brethren are in this webinar, and this is how very popular this topic is. So to each and everyone who joined this webinar, thank you very much. We breached like
Very wishful Dennis. Very wishful
Yes.
Dennis. I have just one announcement. Can I just make one announcement?
okay. Go ahead.
Brethren, very quickly lang. Brethren, our next topic is September 16, third Wednesday of September. If you want to join us, our topic is Masonic lecture. Ano bang ginagawa nila? What do they do? We're not authorities on the Constitution. What we are supposed to provide instruction and supervise on very specific aspects of our ritual and lodge management, and you will find that out more next month. Okay, so if you want to join, here is our next topics. Thank you, very worshipful Dennis.
Thank you, very worshipful Teddy. So again, our next seminar will be on September 16. It will be about Masonic history. The discussion will be the Masonic lecturer, his role, functions from antiquity to today. Okay, so that will be another interesting topic because, as you all know, during our stated meetings, there's always a part there about Masonic lecture. So what is that? Is it just that? Is it just there for something, or is it supposed to enrich our learning in the craft? So this is another interesting topic that will be discussed next month. Again, once again, to those who attended, thank you very much. This has been an inspiring evening, which has been brought to us by the Grand Lodge of the Philippines and perfectly delivered by our rockstar lecturer, very worshipful SGL Teddy Calao. And of course,
Thank you to my fellow amigo.
yeah, three musketeros sa Baldayan.
You'll see,
Of course,
you'll see us in costume, brethren, eventually. Okay.
and of course, we would like to also thank our most worshipful Grandmaster who has been encouraging us to come up with this lecture series. So the brethren will have a lot of things to work on and to learn while in the pandemic. We also have with us a while ago very worshipful AGS Oliver Yabut, and maybe in the next lecture series we'll be engaging him more in the question and answer part. So again, brethren, this has been a very fruitful evening. We always guard the West Gate to make sure that we make good men better. Okay, so to all of you, magandang gabi, maraming salamat, and see you again in our next webinar series.
Goodbye, brethren. Good night.
Good night.